going to open the May the 15th, 2018 minutes, the meeting. I'm going to have the invocation by, is Jocelyn Williamson here? Go ahead and get ready. We're going to do the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Firstner, and then we'll have the roll call. Please stand.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Johnson, council members, staff, and citizens. As we convene this evening to focus on the needs of the city of Ocoee, let us remember that when we share with others that which is most important to us, listening begins. When we acknowledge the concerns of others, when we say those concerns matter, compassion begins. When we stand united against hatred, violence, and injustice, courage begins. When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, in spite of our disagreements, this is where understanding begins. Tonight, may we be open to others' ideas and beliefs, respectful of our differences, not threatened by them. May we grow in understanding of our own motives. May we replace fear with knowledge, helping us to be patient and charitable in our dialogue. While we often focus on our differences, this evening let us also seek to understand the ideals and values we share. Today and tomorrow, let us value one another more than we did yesterday. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Grogan,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Firstner,
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
All right, presentation of proclamations done tonight. Comments from citizens. Anybody in the audience that has any comments pertaining to anything that's not on the agenda, now's the time to talk. If it's not on the agenda, you can talk now. Okay. All right, staff reports.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Commissioners' announcements. Commissioner Oliver.
Nothing.
Commissioner Firstman.
Not at this time.
Commissioner Wilson.
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Grogan.
Not at this time.
All right, we've got a couple of announcements. The Ocoee Police Department's 9th Annual Community Picnic is this Saturday, May the 19th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Freedom Park, which is located at 351 Thornbrook Drive. The event will include free food, drinks, games, and activities, as well as raffles for various prizes. The Freedom is located on the south part of town. The public is invited to attend the Memorial Day ceremony scheduled for Friday, May the 25th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Bill Breeze Park. After the ceremony, refreshments will be served. The Memorial Day ceremony will include a processional to the Ocoee Memorial Wall, where a wreath will be set in place. The memorial wall is inscribed with the names of Ocoee residents who gave their lives for freedom. In addition, there will be ceremonial flag presentation by the Ocoee Police and Fire Department Honor Guard. All right. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Commissioner Worcester. Here's second.
Second.
Motion seconded by Commissioner Oliver. Let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right. First readings, public hearings. First reading and public hearing of resolution creating the Ocoee Brownfield area, Ocoee Special Economic Enhancement Development. City Planner Rumor.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Mike Rumor, City Planner, presenting the first reading and public hearing for the opportunity to present to you an overlay over a geographical area that encompasses our downtown, and we extended it out to partway on the 429. You can see from this map, the solid line is the geographical area that we're looking to designate as the Ocoee Special Economic Enhancement District. This is a map that was mailed out to the properties that were affected. There were over 700 properties. I think many of the people in attendance here tonight are here to see what's going on. Staff, we mailed this out just about 4 weeks ago, and we've kept a log of the phone calls. We've had about 20 phone calls, talked to some great people, and appreciate the time to present this to you and to the citizens tonight. I have Mr. John Jones with SNME as our consultant. He's going to bat after me, give a presentation, the more specifics on the overlay. Just quickly, this overlay is another tool in the chest of the city of Ocoee, potentially, if this resolution is passed. And it's a resolution because Florida law provides for this brownfield redevelopment economic incentive overlay. And it specifically says it's done by resolution, but it must have 2 readings and 2 public hearings. When I say it's a tool, if you see, this is the Florida Statute 376.84, but it provides a lot of financial incentives, tax incentives, in ways that the city can help future development of these properties that are shown in the geographic area. And some preliminary discussions with residents tonight. We had some questions like, what does it do to my zoning? And I can say it doesn't affect your zoning at all. It doesn't affect your use code with the property appraiser. We did send out, with the mailings, we sent out this map, as I said, and on the back side was an FAQ, and we made sure the last item on here is what will this mean for my single-family home, and there's no effect on a single-family home, and John can speak more of that later on. But this is just showing that this is a Florida statute, kind of guides how this development, how this overlay acts. There's specific tools that we can use as a local government in this geographic area that can tie into and supplement and add on to the economic incentive the city passed with that statewide ordinance that Orange County also adopted of providing incentives to target industries. So this is another way to kind of show developers and future people that want to redevelop in our downtown along the 429 that we have this geographical area that is open to these state incentives. And with that, I will ask Mr. John Jones to come up and get this PowerPoint ready.
All right. Get back to the first page here.
I'll give your name.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Johnson, ladies and gentlemen of the Ocoee Commission, Madam Clerk, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. My name is John Jones with SNME. I am from Orlando, Florida, address 1615 Edgewater Drive, Suite 200. Tonight we're going to talk about the City of Ocoee Brownfield. I'm going to give you a briefing as to some information about how the Brownfield program works. We'll talk about brownfield sites that are currently here in Ocoee, and then we'll also talk about the next steps in the process, what the city has to do or what the city can do if they would like to initiate a brownfield in this area. So here's our agenda tonight. We're going to talk about what the brownfield definition is, what the textbook definition is, what the process is to establish a brownfield, what are some of the benefits in brownfield areas and brownfield sites, what is the EPA brownfield program, that's the national government brownfield program that operates in addition to the local state brownfield, and then some of the information for, or contacts or additional information with the state and local agencies that govern the brownfields. So, I'd like to give special thanks to Mr. George Houston II and Carrie Crucial from DEP, Florida DEP, for providing information for this presentation. What are brownfields? The EPA definition of a brownfield, we can read along. It's a property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse which may be complicated by the presence of a potential substance or hazardous pollutant or contaminant. Brownfield is a economic redevelopment tool. It can be used for economic development, community development, and redevelopment, residential projects, open space and green projects, public health projects,
removal of stigma of blight, and promoting the effective use of community resources. A brownfield area is a contiguous area that has several brownfield sites located within it. They may or may not have traces of contamination, but they can be designated by a local government resolution for economic development purposes. And we'll show some of the brownfield sites that are here in Ocoee right now. But what we're talking about today is a brownfield area, just an area. The brownfield process, it's a 4-step process. Right now we're at step 1 right here. We're at the brownfield designation time. So this is where the brownfield area could be designated by the city. They would establish or identify a person responsible for the brownfield site program. And then the next step is if there are brownfield sites in the area that would like to be redeveloped or rehabbed, those property owners can come forward and work with the city and the state and the national EPA to clean up their parcels and take advantage of the credits and programs available to them. And then the last step is the implementation of the BRSA, which is a Brownfield Rehabilitation Site Agreement, by the person responsible for the brownfield site rehabilitation. That's a lot of alphabet soup there. What that means is the city will appoint a representative of city staff to take care of the brownfield program and administer that program, and he'll be the point of contact. He or she will be the point of contact for the city's brownfield area program. All right, so brownfield program benefits. There's a couple before and afters on the screen there that show what the areas look like before and after the brownfield area was implemented and after they took advantage of the incentives that were available. So economic revitalization, property valuation increase, job creation, reduction in safety and environmental risks, reduction in sprawl, and green space creation, and also infrastructure improvement. So it's a great tool and mechanism to improve the area. Brownfield area incentives. There's a brownfield incentive for job creation that Michael talked about. It dovetails nicely with the state's targeted industry program, so that if you have a QTI program, that's the Qualified Targeted Industry Tax Rebate Program, you can get an additional $2,500 per job. There's also a loan guarantee program and a sales and use tax exemption available for building materials that are used within a brownfield area for affordable housing projects. Other brownfield site benefits include all the benefits of a brownfield area, regulatory framework for cleanup of a site, access to staff for expedited technical review when you're dealing with redeveloping a site, liability protection, voluntary cleanup tax credits, and also a memorandum of understanding with the EPA. Other voluntary cleanup tax credits include credits on Florida corporate income tax. So this is where it becomes a very useful tool in recruiting targeted industries to come into the area. They may be transferred once if another company comes in and assumes that responsibility. Credits are awarded for eligible work, such as site rehabilitation, solid waste removal, such as gas tanks, and transport and disposal of contaminated material. Bonus credits are available for site rehabilitation once you complete the site rehabilitation, and you get the SRCO, that's a Site Rehabilitation Completion Order, or if you develop affordable housing within the area as well. Some of the voluntary cleanup tax credits, they range from site rehabilitation to getting your completion order where you have no further action needed, affordable housing bonus, healthcare facility bonus, or solid waste bonuses. There are tax credits available for each one of these areas of up to $500,000 for the agency or group that completes the cleanup. A little history about some of the brownfields that have been established over the years. You can see they spiked from 2008 up through 2014. Last year there were 4 established, and site rehabilitation completion orders, there were 5 of those completed last year. All right, the national program, also that's the national government, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has assessment grants available for up to $200,000 to identify contamination on a site, whether that exists, and also cleanup grants available from the national government for up to $200,000 for cleaning up any areas where contaminants have been identified. You also have access to revolving loans, job training grants, and coalition grants, where you bring together 2 or more different agencies to work together to clean up a particular site. And those grants are up to $1 million as well. So you have your state program, and you also have your national program of different incentives, different pools of money that are available to the redevelopment of parcels within this area. So state versus federal programs, the Florida Brownfield Program, it's incentive-based. So it can be used with a federal grant, but it's available both to the public and to the private sector. And it's to encourage a reuse and redevelopment of parcels. It's used to stimulate economic activity. The federal program is grant-based. So it's not incentive, it's a grant-based. It's subject to the cleanup rules, but you get the money to do the cleanup, do the assessment, and do the cleanup. You can qualify even if you're not participating in the state program. The funding emphasizes leveraging. So if you can gather funding from different sources, the national program really likes to see that. All right, brownfield areas near Ocoee. What you see here on the map, well, that's really hard to see. Okay, the little box area is a box that is around your existing brownfield sites in the city of Ocoee. And what you can't really make out on that map is the large Winter Garden brownfield area that is immediately adjacent. So I'm kind of outlining it right now. That whole area is an adjacent brownfield area near Ocoee. Here are the sites that are within that little box, contamination sites, and it tells you which one the sites are and where they are in their cleanup activity. So number 1 is petroleum cleanup. The majority of these are petroleum storage tank removals. Fashion cleaners, that's the solvents from cleaning. Petrotech is another active petroleum. Boundless Trust is another petroleum cleanup. Gas station, Imperial cleanup. CW Trucking petroleum cleanup. Circle K petroleum cleanup. But you can see where they're clustered right around this area. This little box here was drawn by DEP just to kind of highlight where those areas are located. This is almost in the epicenter of the proposed brownfield area for the city of Ocoee. Brownfield areas in Orange County, they're kind of hard to see on this map, but there are brownfields in Pine Hills. There's a very large brownfield all over the downtown Orlando area, one of the largest in the state. There's a brownfield in Maitland. There's a brownfield in west of Pine Hills. So needless to say, there are a lot of brownfield areas within the Central Florida area. And there are also locations of some of the most vibrant economic activity in the Central Florida area also. So we're going to talk about 4 of the success stories briefly. City View, Lowe's and Fern Park, the Sandifer site, and the Amway Center. The City View Apartments, it's in the Paramore area of downtown Orlando, had a lot of challenges. It's in a CRA, it's also in an enterprise zone, it's in a brownfield area. Had a corner gas station, it had tanks that had to be removed underground, had groundwater contamination, and also had petroleum contamination. They used $900,000 in building material sales tax refund to build those apartments there. They used a brownfield program support for technical advice. They used liability protection during the project, and they also used a brownfields job bonus refund that we talked about earlier, that $2,500 per job refund. The result was a $64 million development there, a mixed-use, mixed-income project, 266 apartments, 40% were affordable, and 60% were market rate, 200,000 square feet of office space, and about 25,000 square feet of ground floor retail. So right there in downtown Orlando. Lowe's and Fern Park on 1792. If you're familiar with this area, it's a 1792 and 436. It's a former Kmart site. It had an automotive shop there also, so there were petroleum and groundwater contaminations associated with that automotive site. So the status was they had to remove the underground storage tanks, the hydraulic lifts in the car repair area had to get taken out as well. Soil had to be taken out and remediated, and a completion order which issued in 2008. Lowe's opened in 2007. They created 125 jobs and were eligible for $225,000 in job creation funds. The Midway Elementary School, its former use was agricultural. There was arsenic contamination there. They had a cow dipping station set up there, and so there was some arsenic on the ground there. They issued a cleanup there, got it completed in 2009, and the school opened in 2010. That was in Sanford. Amway Center, downtown Orlando, 1 and 2 story urban. The contamination there was chlorinated solvents from, we think, the Orlando Sentinel or possibly a dry cleaner. And there was also petroleum contamination from previous gas stations in the area. City signed an agreement to clean it up in 2007. It was completed in 2010, resulted in a $380 million capital investment and created 900 new jobs. So the next step for the city of Ocoee tonight is a policy determination, a go or no-go, whether or not you want to proceed with this. The next step would be also to identify the Brownfield Special Area District, the area on the map for the Ocoee Special Economic Enhancement District delineation. The identification of the city point of contact. That's the person responsible for the Brownfield site area operation. Creation of the authorizing resolution and the map of the proposed district, which is part of the agenda tonight. And scheduling and advertising of the hearings, which we are in process of right now. And then the holding of 2 public hearings for the actual adoption of the resolution, tonight being the first public hearing of those 2 public hearings. And then here's the map of the area right now. This is a map that Mr. Roomer showed earlier. It comprises about 687 parcels, which is about 937 acres if you just go around the boundary of the area. If you just look at the parcels inside there you can see the parcels that are inside that boundary. 687 parcels, but it's only about 724 actual acres once you take out all that right of way and all the streets. So 724 acres inside. This is the contact information for your local DEP representatives that would have detailed information about the state program, who you would contact if you wanted to initiate any of your brownfield site cleanup activities, or if you want to find out additional information about the state brownfield program, you can go to this website as well. Ms. Cruchel's information was crucial for the creation of this presentation. And for the Central District in Orlando, Ms. Kim Rush is the contact there as well. That's the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, feel free.
Yeah, so Mayor,
Yes,
you saw some examples of how specific sites, if this were to go through in Ocoee, could be redeveloped. And when you look at the geographical area we created, because you have those brownfield specific sites, but then you have the brownfield area. And so you say, why did you cast the net that wide, or why did you encompass some of those parcels? And if you look at the map I'll pull up, we had some of the existing I-2 industrial developments in Ocoee that are existing, so that's the opportunity for their redevelopment. You look at the areas in between, we have our downtown, which is similar to all of Orlando, all of downtown Winter Garden, being in this area to provide the incentives for future development. And then you have along the 429, the ability under our emphasis for the 429 overlay to provide future incentives. So you can see as a wide net in this area, it helps future redevelopment and development of parcels. And those specific parcels that were indicated on the map, they do have opportunities under this program, under this overlay area, to take those grants and those funds. So,
All right, what I'm gonna do first is see if there's any questions from the commissioners. I'll start with you, John. Commissioner Grogan.
My question is, as a member of the Florida League of Cities, we meet twice a year, and we pretty much watch what goes on with the state legislature. And when they start encroaching on the powers of the cities, the counties, and whatnot, we will act upon that. And meaning in encroaching is they're they're putting bills in to change things and to eliminate things. Brownfields come up every year. In the 6 years I've been involved in this, every year we fight to keep the brownfields, to keep the money up there, and it fluctuates. And we're always fighting it. I mean, they're trying very hard to eliminate the program. What would happen if we start this brownfield and we get this going? Because as we have heard, all the incentives come from the state, which they get a lot of their money from the federal. What would happen if this should happen to go away and we're in the middle of a brownfield program?
Okay. First off, it's highly unlikely that the brownfield program may go away, but however, funding for certain aspects of it may be challenged. It is that's a good question. It is such a successful program, not only here in the Central Florida area, but throughout the state, that there is a lot of support from the business community to maintain that program. However, should the worst case scenario happen and that program go away at the state level, you would still have the federal program available for your grant, for your property assessments, for environmental contaminants, and then you would also have your remediation grants available as well. So that program would still be available and would be untouched by actions of the Florida State Legislature.
And then a third tier is, this affords the city staff and commission the opportunity to provide incentives in this geographical area, such as a waiving of some impact fees that does not have to be supplemented from the general fund as if you were doing it in other areas. So as an incentive, we're able to waive some of these impact fees or reduce them and not have to cover the delta with general funds. You can just, because they're in an economic area, you can just waive or reduce those impact fees. So there's still some incentives on our level that are still available as well.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes. It looks like 5 of the contaminated areas are close to the city hall. Is that what I understand? Is that from the map?
Yes, ma'am.
The bonus gas station and a dry cleaners and the other one's over on Enterprise, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Let me bring that map up, but you
Yeah,
are correct.
part of the, I guess the good part of the legislation is when they define area, they don't limit you to, a quarter mile, from a site. So if you see kind of DEP's kind of area, we kind of took that and said, okay, we can make this economic enhancement district. There's no regulations on how far from those particular sites can you go. So that also aided us in creating the geographical area.
And a lot of these sites that you're showing, 1 through 5, appear to be very close to what we're working on within our downtown area,
Yes.
correct? In our way out Plant Street going,
Yes, ma'am.
am I correct?
Correct, yes.
Is that going to be an incentive for the city, for the redevelopment of that area alone, for the money we're putting into that?
Well, specifically for those properties, they've got to come to the table, but they now will have opportunities they do not have if this resolution is not passed. And certainly, when the ultimate alignment or realignment or Silver Star Road runs near some of those properties, that invites the opportunity. We have a new Silver Star Road, a developer that knows what brownfield incentives are. It gives them an opportunity to look at that site a little bit more, knowing it's got some difficulties, but there are some options available now.
Is the oil, maybe I'm missing the name of it, is the oil,
That's the Petrotech number 3.
Petrotech, the tanks down there
Yes,
behind
and then the bonus
close up.
is the one right in front of it.
behind Bonus, correct?
Yes, 3 and 4 next to each other, yes. That's the bonus gas station and then
Bonus plug.
Petrotech behind it,
With the oil tanks?
with the oil tanks,
okay.
yes, with the silos back there.
Yeah, the silos, thank you. Okay. All right, thank you. That's it for right now.
Commissioner Ferguson.
What kind of impacts does the brownfield area have on average homeowner in the area that isn't experiencing any kind of environmental issues or anything like that? Does it affect the ability for them to resell their property, or does it lower their property values in any way, being in this area?
No, sir.
Yeah.
No,
No,
sir.
it does
No.
not. And the reason the legislation came up with is because there's perceived property value devaluation being associated near these properties. When you put this brownfield area, this geographical area, it doesn't modify zoning. It doesn't go on the property appraiser's website to say the DOR use code is single family, brownfield. There's no designation that is tied to the property with this. And as you can see, in Winter Park originally had a brownfield overlay, but when they were redeveloping Winter Garden, Maitland, the property values are really high in those areas today.
So there's no stigma attached being in a brownfield?
No.
No, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner Oliver.
Well, I have 3 questions. One, you've identified, just looking at it from a SWOT analysis, you've identified the strengths and the weaknesses of the strengths and the opportunities of the program. What about any weaknesses or threats that with any good proposal or business opportunity, you definitely want to identify these things. So I guess my question is, are there any weaknesses or threats involved with the brownfield project?
Certainly, that's a very good question. With regards to potential weaknesses, weaknesses are generally attributed to something internal. So the internal weaknesses or potential internal weaknesses here would be a lack of commitment from the city to establish the brownfield and or staff it properly and administer it correctly or administer it properly with vigor. From a threat point of view, which are usually external and beyond the city's control, Mayor Pro Tem raised those threats, potential threats with regards to future acts of the Florida legislature if they choose to undermine local home rule any further like they tried to do in the last session. So those would be the two threats and weaknesses, I guess, associated with it. With regards to the opportunities is the economic development upside with regard to the access to the different programs, being an incentive to developers to come in and locate and build in the area. The regulatory incentives that are now available to be administered by the city, and also the financial incentives that are available to be administered by the city.
We've also mentioned, thank you. We've
Yes,
also
sir.
mentioned that, again, that is a very popular program throughout the state of Florida.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any data that will support any failed projects throughout the state of Florida? Have there been any failures with the brownfield project?
There have been brownfields that have taken longer to complete than originally anticipated. Some of the discoveries or assessments found items that weren't anticipated, and it took longer to remediate those items and rehabilitate those items. And if they did not perform according to the brownfield site rehabilitation agreement, they did not receive their SRO closing bonus, the $500,000 bonus for completion on time and on schedule. So the long and short of that answer is yes, there have been less than successful examples of brownfield site rehabilitation in the state of Florida.
And remember, there's still the two items. There's specific brownfield properties in the brownfield area. And a similar tool that's used to help fight blight would be a CRA, and it's Community Redevelopment Area District. And those have a lifespan by statute of 30 years. And under this brownfield area, we have properties that people may be saying, why is my specific single-family lot in this area, located within this geographical boundary? And as we hope, as we're putting a lot of emphasis in our downtown, a lot of resources to make a downtown happen really quick with infrastructure, we hope to have a vibrant downtown before 15 years, but beyond 15 years, you don't know what the streetscape of downtown area Ocoee will be. And potentially some of those parcels that are on Floral, some of these along Blueford, in areas, Bay Street, that are single-family homes, nothing's going to happen as they are in an area unless a developer comes knocking on their door seeking to develop and utilize these incentives. But there's no end date of 30 years. So as he said, if we don't market our brownfield area, our Ocoee Special Economic Enhancement District, as well as we can, and we don't get those developers to the table and let people know, hey, there's opportunities for a couple specific sites, but there's also opportunities in our downtown area and our 429. If you have heavy industrial, you want to redevelop one of our heavy industrial sites down there, there's opportunities for you to receive incentives and potentially from the city, state, and Ocoee.
And my final question is just simply, let's just fast forward into the future here. Let's just say this was approved, and if it was, what would happen at that point? What would be the plan as far as the utilization of the brownfield project?
Right. Now remember, in the mailings, we did notify people, the second reading of this resolution and adoption is for June 5th. So at that time, if the resolution is passed and we create the Ocoee Special Economic Enhancement District, John will help us facilitate the rest of the process with DEP to put it on the registry. And then staff will begin to incorporate, or we're ready, this into any of our literature we have for incentives to include the CRA, the program, the state program that we have.
QTI program?
Yeah, Qualified Target Industry Program, where we can abate property taxes for businesses moving into Ocoee or Orange County. And we start to use this as a tool, and we put that out there. And the development community will know, they look at these brownfield sites, and they know that there's opportunities here. So I hope I answered your question. staff will get involved, we'll create a brownfield file, we'll have staff member assigned to it, and we'll start implementing whatever we can, and hopefully people start knocking on our doors.
I know I said 3 questions, but one more. Is there any financial impact to the city to do this?
Certainly, there's none without your blessing. Any incentive that comes through is going to be brought before the city commission. By adoption of this resolution, it does not commit us to
Correct.
any funds to do that process.
Thank you.
All right, before I open the public, one of the things I think the gentleman told me was you can opt out of it, right? If you're in the area where the residential, you could opt out of it, not be in that brownfield area?
Yes.
Yes.
So we started off, we had 5 map versions.
Yes, so we're on map number 6.
Yes, and we feel that these opportunities are the best for residents. They may be residential now, they may have their property in a trust to their family, but we feel these offer the best incentive when the downtown develops, and as you start going from, if you take Oakland as sort of, or McKee, that block, as you start going up to Silver Star and down, there's opportunities in the future. We certainly think these are all candidates, not specific all 687 parcels, but you never know how they're going to accumulate in the future and how they're going to develop or redevelop. So
Right.
yes, but that is there.
All right, first thing, I'll open it up to the public for a public hearing, it's first reading. Here's if you want to speak, you need to fill one of these out and come to the podium. We'll start with anybody here, I don't have any for anybody, so if anybody's here for the brownfield thing, come forward and recognize at the podium and give your name, address, and where you live, and then you have to fill the form out. You get them back there at the table, Eddie. Somebody pass them out to somebody if they put their hand up, will you, Craig? Now, if it's all gonna be the same questions, try to cut it back, but if not, we'll go ahead and try to get through this. You get 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
If I have
under
3
public hearing.
properties, do I get 15
No,
minutes?
ma'am, you get 5 minutes.
Right, thought I asked.
You get 5 minutes.
All right, my name's Michelle Nunley. I own 3 properties in the 600 homes. Couple questions. I Googled brownfield, and there is a depreciating impact on the homes. There are stated areas that your house does depreciate. Another thing is, you do have to disclose that it is a brownfield area. When you had said you don't have to tell people, it's not on the tax records, you have to tell that your area is designated. You can't not tell people that if you go to sell your property. Question, why don't you just designate the commercial area as brownfield instead of the 600 homes that would impact our homes?
The reason is under the downtown overlay and under the State Road 429 overlay, it affords the opportunity to have dense urban development similar to where you have mixed uses. So there's the ability to have low, medium, and high density residential living next door to a commercial or in the same building, in the same development. So those development patterns can happen in a downtown, hopefully in Ocoee, not just necessarily along Silver Star, Oakland, or McKee, but it can make its way down Blueford Avenue is an arterial road, McGuire Road's an arterial road. So we have a lot of heavy traveled roads.
But those are residential right now. Why wouldn't you just designate the commercial area? So you're already saying that we want to get rid of these residential homes.
Thank you.
And this is the big question. What financial benefit is to us as people that are homeowners? What does it benefit us? It sounds like the city is going to benefit in getting all this grants and money, but what to us as homeowners?
Yeah, so as this is used as a tool as our downtown develops and as property values start to rise and it becomes more conducive to further development, this provides the opportunities, it provides the incentives for a developer or somebody that has a property that wants to redevelop their property. Because those values are rising, it's going to make more opportunities for people to come in and join this market that haven't been there, just like you see in those areas in downtown Orlando, in Maitland. Yeah.
You have to come up. You have to come to the podium.
I think the areas that you have told us about aren't really worthy of, I mean, you said areas in Pine Hills, Paramore,
Almost all
those
of,
are all commercial, you develop commercial in those areas. All the
What-
pictures you showed were commercial.
I think they had some in downtown Winter Garden also.
That was commercial too, he showed us all the gas stations.
almost the entire downtown Orlando area is a brownfield. So my neighborhood's a brownfield. I live in a brownfield, 23 years in a brownfield. So
Sorry.
no, it's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful area. So, with regards to programs that would be available to local property owners here, under the brownfield regulatory incentives and Florida statutes, there are local grant programs for facade and storefront signage and other business improvements. Water and sewer regulatory incentives can be made available. Zoning incentives to reduce review requirements or redevelopment or changes in use and occupancy. Also,
So it would pay to
flexibility.
put in,
Excuse me?
it'd pay to put in, like take out septic and put in
It could be.
sewage
Yes, ma'am.
for the homeowners,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
for commercial.
Yes, ma'am. Additionally, flexibility in parking standards and buffer zone standards could be made available. Environmental management through specific code criteria and conditions allowed by current law is also available. Traffic calming measures could be authorized. Historic preservation ordinances, loan programs, and review and permitting procedures could also be incorporated into this program. One-stop permitting and streamlined development and permitting, and also expedited development of permit applications and redevelopment applications, site design assistance, and also marketing and promotion of projects or areas within the brownfield area are all available to the city now.
Well, most of that's commercial, so if there is contamination in our personal homes, do they pay to have the contamination
Speak
cleaned
into
up
the
out of
mic
it?
where we can all hear you.
If there's contamination in our personal property, do they pay to have that cleaned up?
Yes, ma'am. If your property was contaminated, and you wanted to enter into a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with the city and DEP, you could do that to rehabilitate your property.
For nothing, for free.
You would have to enter into an agreement with the city stating that you would do certain things to remediate your property, and you would be eligible to receive grant funding for that. You may have to entail costs in order to receive that grant funding, as would the businesses.
Okay,
All right, next, Aria Manaki. Craig, will you get Mr.
R.P. Benaki, 1820 Prairie Lake Boulevard, Ocoee. Just recently on public television, it had something about the land is sinking or shrinking or subbing because of pulling materials out of the ground, liquid and so on. We have a condition here which, speaking of the tanks, what's happening there? You're removing liquid from the ground?
Are you talking about the city hall ground?
No. Where the tanks are,
The oil tanks.
All right, Mr. Manaki, are you talking about what would they do for the cleanup?
no, you got these tanks over there.
Yes.
Where it is,
Right.
I
Yes.
don't know, but you got tanks over there.
Yes, the property owner, I mean, we don't have this brownfield area yet, but the property owner is not at the table at this time
No,
looking to
not
change them.
proper. What's happening right now with those tanks? Are you drawing liquid out of the ground? Are you creating a void of some kind or
No,
water coming
those
in
were storage
replacing
tanks.
Yeah,
liquid?
those were storage tanks. They were not pumping and
No,
filling them.
just
Yes,
storage tanks.
just storage tanks.
Storage
Okay,
tanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manaki. All right, Joseph Whitaker.
If it's a site, yes. If it's an area.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Whitaker, 375 Enterprise Street. First question I have is there's a designated area in the map that I received. There's a yellow block there. Could you tell me whose property that is that's designated out already?
Yes,
It's on Crown Point,
yes. Yeah, this is the,
right?
yes,
Crown
the
Point?
USDA apartment complex that had been established back when this was agricultural.
Is that on Palm Drive?
Yes, off Palm Drive, correct. Yes.
Federally owned?
Yeah, yes.
Federally owned piece of property.
Right.
Did they request to be removed, or did you guys just do that, or is that
Yes.
the rule?
Right, no, we thought this is a property owner that potentially we can't talk to,
Got
and
it.
so we just removed it out for that reason, just to,
Okay. The one thing that I want to ask and make sure I understand, under the answers here, it says that the Brownfield program allows for the owners who do not wish their property to be included as a brownfields to opt out. Would you explain to me how the people in here who don't want their property in there pick up the paperwork, or how they opt out specifically?
Certainly. Yeah, very good question. Florida statutes authorize a voluntary opting out of participating in a brownfield area by providing a written request to the city. So if you write a letter to the city with your parcel ID, your address on there, and say that I don't want to be in the brownfield area, and that's all it takes.
But you would still be in a designated area, but not in the brownfield program, or just not in the area at all?
You would not be in the area at all.
Oh,
You would
good.
not be eligible to participate in the program, and you wouldn't be in the map.
Okay. One last piece that's a little concerning for me and the commissioners, and I don't know how many of you know or not, the UPS parcel that's across the street from my property. The city was the proud owner of that contaminated property. The city sold that contaminated property to UPS. Does the city feel it has any obligation, as they sold that contaminated property and they knew it was contaminated? If they want to answer.
I don't know if it's in the title, I don't think it's funny, but I will
No,
tell you that
I'm not being funny.
No, I'm gonna try to answer you.
Thank you.
When the title work's done on it, if it's got contamination, to me, I think they put it on the title work.
Mayor, I did the title work on my property and
Yeah.
had it bored and
Right.
tested. I have all the paperwork on that property because I did at that time take a mortgage out on that property that I own. They would not loan 10 cents on that property if it were contaminated.
Yeah.
Mine isn't, but there was a spill in excess of 100 gallons of diesel fuel on that property, and the city knew it, and I can bring forth the records to show the city. I just put it out in front of the commission so that you guys understand they're probably one of the major cleanups that's on Enterprise Street.
Well, then, they knew that if they bought it, they had to do it. Let me finish one time. They had to do an environmental search. You have to do an environmental research
True.
on that property. If they checked it and they knew it and they bought it. Now, if it ever has to be cleaned up now, they own it, they'll have to clean it up. If they'd have said something before in the process of buying that property, then it would have been that way.
Do you feel that the city notified them?
I don't know, I didn't handle the sale.
Would you look into that for me?
Well, I'll let staff look into it.
I would appreciate it
Yeah.
if you would, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that the residents here would like to know.
Well, I
Because
don't think the residents
the,
do.
the disclosure law
Yeah.
on real estate is if you knew,
Yeah.
you must have
Well,
disclosed. You're in the
we'd
real
have to
estate
pull up-
business.
We'd have to pull up that process and see.
Well,
That's-
we would be able to do that,
Well,
right?
I don't know. You can ask the lawyer here, he can tell you. He's the lawyer.
I don't know, when did it close? When was the sale?
I think it's about 6 or 7 years ago, sir.
Might be longer than that.
Yeah, maybe,
It wasn't
maybe.
when I was there.
Longer
I've
than
been here
that.
9, hasn't been.
Yeah, you're talking a lot longer than we were on.
Well, but the records are commercial, sir. The record's not to be destroyed.
No, that.
Any industrial, commercial site records, whether it's buildings or whatever, can never be destroyed.
What we're stating is we were not on the commission
I,
when
I,
this
I
happened.
understood that. I
So
thought
we
I
had no
addressed
reason to
that.
look for it.
I know that he wasn't the mayor, and I know, well, at least Rusty was on the commission.
I was
then.
commissioner when it was
Yes,
sold.
you were.
Yeah. We don't
Anyway,
do-
only
we don't
thing
do
I had
the-
asked
we
is
don't
would
do
you-
the contracts, sir.
Sir,
We don't do the contracts.
so you're not going to address it in any form?
I didn't say that.
Well,
What, that's,
would you
that
clarify?
is a separate issue from what we're doing now. If you want to address that, you come back to the city hall and address that with the staff. And then they can do that for you. Fill out a form, asking them for that information.
I feel
Right.
anger coming from you, Rusty.
Huh?
I feel anger coming from you for me
Not
asking.
me, I'm just trying to answer. You're the one angry all the time.
No, I'm
just
not
trying to answer
angry.
you back.
I'm not angry.
I think so, Mr. Whitaker. I get comments all the time from people telling me what you say. about
Would you
Ocoee.
like to state that on
No,
public
sir.
record?
No, sir.
I
I'm
didn't
just
think
telling
so.
you, if you want to, I'm trying to give you an answer.
I-
If you want to come back and ask the city for the information, fill out the forms, then they can apply for the information and give it to you.
Thank you.
That's
I
all
will.
they have to do.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time.
All right, Jim Pasilla.
I'm Jim Placilla, 531 Ocoee Popka Road. I've also got 345 Enterprise Street. My question, I guess for, I don't know if it's for John or Mike.
Speak
is-
into the mic, Jim.
My question is, I don't know who to ask it of, but from the development process perspective, you know, I've got a choice here whether I can opt out of the brownfield area or stay in it. I don't believe my site's contaminated. So I don't know, from a development perspective, is the process any different if I were to opt out or stay in, if my site's not contaminated, if I wanted to develop it in the future? Is the process, you mentioned there's some expedited permitting potential?
Yeah,
Or is that actually an advantage for those who are not contaminated to
Right,
develop
right.
potentially?
yes. So that's one of the, he was reading off one of the state incentives that a local government can employ. But under our normal development process since 2008, we employ what's be an expedited review of all developments. So that wouldn't be a tool you would lose either way. That's already offered by the city.
So it'd kind of be pretty much the same,
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes,
So-
it doesn't bring any zoning requirements, doesn't bring any land development code requirements. It doesn't add, it doesn't change any.
It doesn't eliminate any,
No.
does it allow any potential incentives, like you had mentioned, potentially that there may be, you know, some of the challenges down where my property is that there's no city services in the area for, like, say, sewer. You know, are there impact fee, potentially
Yes.
incentives if I were to be in the brownfield?
Yes.
Or that
Yes.
would not be available if I was not in the brownfield?
Correct. So the area, the city has a couple of options for properties to provide incentives. The first one would be if you're located in the CRA, Community Redevelopment Area. The second will be the Ocoee downtown. And then the third, if this brownfield area, the Ocoee seed, is developed, it would provide those properties in that geographical area something added that maybe somebody that's not in the CRA or in the downtown can get.
Okay.
Any project can always go to the commission and say, hey, you know, can I have a little help here?
Sure.
But this designates an area where say we're trying to focus on development and redevelopment here. So yes, there are opportunities. Yes.
Okay.
Such as maybe waiving of some impact fees and not having to cover it from our general fund because we can do that
Yeah,
by statute.
as you mentioned
Yes, so
earlier.
those are
Yeah.
still, those would be available under the seed. If you're not in an economic overlay, like the CRA or the downtown, it's not an area we're looking to provide, but there may be an opportunity. I don't want to say there's never an opportunity, but
Sure.
it does go away in a sense.
Fair enough, okay, thank you.
Glenn Miller?
He's coming up. Can I ask a question?
Huh?
Well, he's
Yeah.
coming up. I have a question while this gentleman comes up. Mr. Priscilla made me think of something. If he opted out, if they opt out, okay, and they sell the property, does that mean that the next owner cannot opt back in? You're done? Are you selling off your options to from the next owner?
No.
No, ma'am, it's a voluntary program. They can request inclusion in the program if they would like to be included in the program. However, there is a job creation number that has to be reached for inclusion in the program from a citizen request. So if they opt out now, the only way to get back in is if they have a development project that creates a certain number of jobs on the parcel.
That made it a little more clear, thank you.
Or potentially, as Winter Garden did, they expanded their brownfield area from downtown towards the 429. if we were to ever do an expansion in the future, we could, you know, bring a parcel back in as well.
Thank you, sorry.
Mr. Miller.
My name is Glenn Miller, owner of the Glenn's Paint and Body Shop. I own the property right next to those oil tanks, just on the other side of the road, highly contaminated under that property, I understand. There was some drilling done on both sides of my property, on Mr. Reeves' property, and then on the oil tank property. In doing that, they drilled on my corner on one corner, and then on the opposite corner on the Reeves property, and showed no contamination running on my property, which I thought was astounding. So a lot of the questions and stuff you guys are putting out here tonight is for somebody that's not in here, most likely. I think most everybody in here would like some answers to what's going to happen to their property and what they can do or can't do. Now, if I were to sell my property, and let's say it were contaminated, it was found to be contaminated, because obviously whoever's going to buy it's going to want to drill test it. They're not going to accept what has already been done. And they find contamination on there. Is it my understanding that they can get help in clearing the contamination without any expense on their part? This is kind of what I'd like to have clarified pretty good here, because if I sell the property, he's going to want to know, you know, what's going to be his expenses in cleaning this thing up.
Correct. If you enter into a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with the EPA, you would be eligible for a grant. And that grant is a $200,000 assessment grant that is available to offset the costs that you would incur in your cleanup. It is not a carte blanche payment for all of your cleanup costs. You would receive a grant for up to $200,000.
Okay.
So if you incur costs, you could apply that grant to those cleanup costs. But they would not pay for anything in excess of $200,000.
Okay, so that kind of settles that issue. Now, back to the oil tank issue and the roads, Silver Star Road.
Okay.
Which I know that's kind of off the list, but it really isn't, because it comes through this brownfield section. And it may or may not come next to my property, I don't know. I know the studies, I think, are going over those tanks, or perhaps even taking my property, which would be fine with me. But nonetheless, let's say they take the oil tanks.
Okay.
They have to clean that property up, is that correct?
I would assume so, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just the cleanup of that property would eliminate a great deal, no doubt. I mean,
To clarify, the type of cleanup that may be needed would be based on the environmental assessment that identifies the type of contaminants and where those contaminants are located, and then the subsequent use of that property as it's going to be developed, if it's going to be developed for residential or non-residential uses, or if it's going to be a roadway. So there would be different levels of remediation that would be needed if people are going to be living on that site, or if there's going to be a business on that site, or if there's going to be a roadway on that site.
now is it my understanding that most of this contamination flows with the water direction under the ground?
It depends on the type of contamination, sir.
It does.
Some
Okay.
contamination does.
Yeah, because the guys that did the drilling on either side of me, they were telling me that on Reed's side, it was flowing across the road into the open field, and then across on the oil tank side, it was flowing back towards the shopping center. And they said there was nothing wrong on my property, but that sure doesn't alleviate my situation if I want to sell.
Understood.
Okay, that is all I have to say.
Thank you. John Palmer.
My name is John Palmer. I live at 750 Pine Street, which is a fairly new designation. Mayor and commissioners, I was looking at this while I was waiting for a very nice brochure, by the way, but did read something that I wanted to ask a question about. It says on the SR 429 Master Plan and Overlay District, a major focus of the plan is creating the SR 429 corridor as a choice location of high-quality targeted industries. Well, the place we just developed for residential house is right on the 429 corridor on the eastern side. My concern, it seems that these incentives are to attract major developers to do some nice things for the area, bring a lot of taxes and whatnot, which is all fine and good. But I know that commercial property tends to generate more taxes than residential property. And my concern would be whether or not the current residential areas would begin to get encircled like a cowboy and Indian time camp here, and find out that it's getting squeezed and surrounded by a lot of well-meaning and high tax-paying industries, and pretty well lose out on and find out you're surrounded by industry in a small residential area.
Yes, your location, which is on the east side of the 429 and west of Ocoee Popka Road, that in a sense, that ship sailed when we adopted the 429 overlay and specifically made a specific character area for the properties on your side of the road called the business character area. So we've created an overlay with specific development requirements and to tap into incentives for that area already. Those are in place and can happen around you at any time. This is another tool, but by adopting this, it doesn't make the end that you see happen. It already happens because we've designated this area in a way that can attract development and redevelopment, and it kind of shows the future growth of this area. We're looking for high and medium density in the area to support the retail that we expect to come to this 429 interchange. And your lot and when you subdivided into 3 lots happen to be in the middle of that area. And that sort of began as you were seeking to purchase the property, and a lot of public process after that. But so to answer your question, this will not necessarily make that happen. It's already an inducement because of our State Road 429 area.
So it's possible that the residential area there will diminish considerably. Possible.
Possible. Time frame, 20 years, 15 years beyond. Yes.
Edmund Harrison, Eddie.
Mayor and councilmen and ladies and gentlemen, I suppose if I had false teeth right now, they'd be. But I have got some concern. First of all, I do live 10,005 Florida Boys Ranch Road in Claremont now. And I'm born and raised and went to school here in Ocoee, which the only one I can recognize right this minute is Mayor Johnson, okay? But my concern is we owe our soul to China now. And they keep getting us here, grants.
Eddie, speak into that mic, but.
It's gonna have to stop sometime or another. And I got 2 places I'm concerned about. I got a place up here off of end of West McKee Street, and it is industrial. And I want to know, for one of them, can I opt out on that? I bought that in either the last part of '84 or '85, the first part of '85.
He says you can opt out.
Well,
Yes, sir.
a while ago, I didn't exactly understand a while ago, because I know we was talking about residential too, so I didn't know where it's just residential, okay?
Anybody.
Can I ask him a question? Eddie, if you sold that property, I know where you're at. I know where you're at. What if it was contaminated? Would you not want the money to have it cleaned up?
Rusty, I'm 75 years old.
I know that, what I'm saying.
And I've just got life estate.
I went to school with you. I know how old you are.
I'm leaving it to, I got life estate, and I'm leaving it to my 2 kids.
Well,
And I bought that from Lott's Concrete Products, Johnny Lott, who I bought that from.
You're saying you want them to clean it up?
Well, let's put it this way. It sounds to me like no matter what I've heard, they'll go so much, and then, well, if it gotta be cleaned up, they'll lose their, in other words, I ain't getting all that much rent from it, but I'd rather have it rented from week to week, month to month, rather than it being vacant half the time.
You can opt out of it if you want to.
But the other thing is, if you go way up there on the 4th corner up there, That's the place my parents bought in 1935. And with a faraway farm that joins up to it, which is contaminated, and right across from the Circle K, and in other words, the Circle K is right there in the housing project, there where it's low-income houses that the city got in there. I think y'all carried, I think, not y'all, but the people that done the contract work carried in about 400 loads of sand to fill that in. And they checked that for gasoline, and it was highly contaminated. And in other words, I'll be honest with you, Rusty, I hate to say it, Mayor, all our water up in that way is just, it's not fit to drink no more because of the contamination.
That's why they're signing up for city water, Eddie.
Well, I've come down here and checked on that, and you know what? I don't understand it. If you get city water here, you gotta sign a thing when the city sees it feasible that you'll come into the city. You take for instance, like where me and the wife went for a while when I retired up in Defuniac Springs. They got a grant, and they got water over 5 miles from the city, and they charge the people same time. Just, I guarantee you, if the people out there been getting the water like that, the city asked them to come in, they'd be glad to, because, hey, it ain't one of them things, I got you held up, you've got to do what I tell you to do. I think that's where most of the problem coming from.
Well, I will tell you that I grew up right by where you're at too, you know that. I grew up 2 streets down from you, so all the people in those areas are trying to sign up on the water because of the well problems and stuff, Eddie. So I grew up with the sulfur water, just like you did. But people up there now are trying to sign up for it. But pertaining to what we're talking about here tonight, if you want to opt out of those things, you can. So there won't be a problem.
That's what I do. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, man, good to see you. Eddie was the tractor driving champion of the school. He could outdrive anybody with a tractor. Betty Hill.
Hello, my name is Betty Hill. I live at 793 Pine Street. And although my address is Ocoee, I live in Orange County, so that's a question. My question is, I hear so much talk about commercial property and commercial this, commercial that, and I'm more concerned with exactly what are my benefits. For instance, I have a deep well. Well, and I know that the government, the county, EPA gives all kinds of grants. Would I be eligible for a grant, for instance, to give me city water? Would I be eligible for maybe a better septic tank? Would I be eligible for all these things that you find in these brownfield areas? That's my concern, because commercial, you know, if it comes, fine. If it doesn't come. So I personally, I would like to opt in to clean up, but I'm gonna get some benefits vice a job. I don't need a job. I don't need commercial. I just want my property cleaned up if I'm in a brownfield area. And if I don't get some kind of cleanup, what's the benefit? Because I'm not looking to sell, and I'm not looking, period.
When John was speaking of the grants and the monies provided, available under a brownfield area to provide those water and sewer capabilities to properties. The city has a plan, a 10-year water supply and a 10-year wastewater supply plan. If your property was not in an area designated as a future extension, I believe we do have services on Palm Drive, but if it was not, that would be one tool that the utility department and the city can use in order to forward a project, maybe pay for design engineer permitting, maybe pay for construction. That provides a tool to get some grant money that the city always seeks to try to supplement and lower the cost of construction. So yes, in that scenario, that would have a positive effect on a single-family home. Yes.
Good, that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. All right, have no more slips filled out. Does anybody else want to make any comments on the brownfield? Phil, well, you got to come up to the podium.
Should have mentioned this earlier, but I forgot it. I remembered it, and I want to bring it up. You say the next meeting is what,
June the 5th.
June the 5th? So we're at May about 15th, so we're just, what, 2.5, 3 weeks away? That's a lot, that's pretty short time, and there's a lot of stuff here to digest. I would really like to see this next meeting postponed for at least 6 weeks and give us time to really look things over and think things through and make, informative contacts so we can do some good homework on our own. That's just kind of a short timetable. Could the city do something like that?
Well, I just asked the lawyer, and he said we can, so.
Yeah, if we can make it 6 weeks, I mean, would anybody else like a little more time to look this thing over and think it through and get a little more advice, information?
Just a minute. Huh?
6 weeks would put us at,
June 19th would be the next city commission meeting after,
is that 6 weeks?
after the 5th.
Yeah, it is, okay, I'm sorry.
All right, first of all, let's see. Well, I have to bring it back. When we get through the public hearing, I'll bring it back up to the podium and we'll ask, see. Okay?
Thank you.
The major, the one that I know you talk about, Glenn, is the one at bonus property there on that thing. Somebody's gonna have to pay a lot of money to solve that problem when they buy
Did
it.
the city do that drilling, or did the guy?
No,
next to me do
that
it?
was the state.
The state did that?
They did those roads.
Okay, that was when you was getting started with the state, and then you kind of opted out of the state thing and went with Orange County Metro?
Yeah. All I know is it was the state that those drilling, there's drilling points behind where you're at, I know. in
Yeah,
that
there's
building.
monitoring wells.
Yeah, monitoring wells. But it's, you don't have to be in it, you can be in it or out of it, it don't matter. It's your benefit. If you sell your property and something's wrong with it, then you're gonna get money to help you sell it.
Well, the problem is it
Well-
takes $600,000 and they
Well,
give you $200,000.
Well, then you won't get 200, you'll have to pay 600.
It's $200,000 less than 600,000.
All right, all right, nobody else in the audience? But just a second. Anybody else? I'm all right, I'm gonna close the public hearing and bring it back to the podium. All right, Commissioner Wilson has one first.
No, I'm sorry, I was looking, I thought you were talking July.
All right.
Go ahead.
Just one question. If a resident decide to opt out and it goes through and they opt out, looking at the lines and where it's drawn, will the lines have to be redrawn as a result of opting out? Or will they stay inside that zone even though they're opted out?
There would be a little line around their property that would
Just
show
like
them
Laurel
being
Palmer.
opted out, and in the legal description or the list of participating parcels, their property ID would not be included in that list.
All right, back to the podium now. All right, what's your, if you wanna put it off, put it off. That's up to the 5 commissioners or 4 commissioners and us. So, that's up to,
Cass, is it, we could do that, Scott?
Yeah, we haven't advertised for the 5th yet, have we?
Yes, we did. We advertised both dates, but that's fine. We can, if we come up with a date certain tonight, that helps us from having to re-advertise. But if not, we can re-advertise those dates, that new date.
Does that require any mailing out to folks, or just a re-advertisement? What
It
does-
would,
'cause-
it's the re-advertisement for the resolution, yes.
Correct, but in
Yes.
your original notice, did you give the dates of the first and second public hearing? And will that mean a new mailing to all the residents, the 670 or 700, whatever, I'm sorry,
687.
the 700 parcels? Does that mean we have to remail to those 700 and?
Yes. The mailing just presented today's date. It did not present the
second reading?
second reading, just the legal
Okay.
advertisement for the resolution did.
Okay. Thank you.
anybody else?
We have nothing pending, like
We have,
anything out there yet to get money or anything. We're free to go ahead and move
Yes,
this without any
correct.
financial.
I mean,
I don't see why we don't move it out.
gonna be the same thing when you come back. You gonna call him or something, Glenn? You wanna call that gentleman? I think he's the one you gotta talk to. You know, it's up to you guys, so. We can put it off, it's just gonna be, you can do your own research on it, you know.
Just kind of short notice to.
Well, I think the notice sent out when they sent you the notice of what it was doing.
Yeah, well, we had
Yeah.
no idea what was gonna happen
Yeah.
here. You guys have had a long time to study
Yeah.
this, think about it, present it to us, and now.
Well, there's no problem, like I said, we can put it off, you can come back, you know. That's up to,
I'll be happy to make a motion. Do we need a
give me a motion.
I'll make a motion to put it off for 6 weeks or until the date specified.
What is the date?
June 19th.
June 19th.
All right.
June 19th.
All right, motion made to put the, brownfield, resolution off till June the 19th. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner First. Any more comments? If not, let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right, come back on the, be back on the 19th. I'm gonna read, first of all, he's gonna read the title off.
This is the first, yes.
This is a resolution of the City of Ocoee, Florida, creating the Ocoee Downtown Brownfield area for the purpose of environmental remediation, rehabilitation, and economic redevelopment. Authorizing the city clerk to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection of said designation as required, and providing an effective date.
All right, so the next reading will be June the 19th, is when we'll have the, second reading. End the hearing. All righty, I'm gonna, have a 5-minute recess for, if anybody wants to leave, can go ahead and leave. We'll have to take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna reconvene. We're gonna be at item number 10, Sierra Place at Lake Meadow preliminary and final subdivision plan. City Planner Rumor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mike Rumor, City Planner. The project before you is a preliminary and final subdivision plan for Sierra Place at Lake Meadows. This is a proposed townhome development in the existing Prairie Lake PUD. The subject property is on the west side of Clark Road and across from the intersection of Hackney Prairie and Clark Road. The City Commission saw this property back in the mid-2000s or 2010 under Lexington Park for ALF. It was changed from a townhome development to a ALF, and now it's converting back to a townhome development. The property is undeveloped. There's smack dab in the middle of it is a City of Ocoee pond. It borders the Lake Meadow on the west and Clark Road on the east. The zoning is PUD medium density. Within the Prairie Lake PUD, this is a city's track on 80 Mims is down here. They have the fire station. You can see up the road here. This is the track where the townhome is, this development within that plan unit development. The approximate acres is a little over 21 acres. They're proposing 88 townhomes with two-car garage. The townhome lots will be approximately 24 and a half feet wide by 100 feet deep. The units have been designed to allow 2 parking spaces, 2 cars to park in the driveway and 2 in the garage. They are a 2-car garage with these. There is other off-street parking provided in this development. The development will have 1 full access point onto Clark Road, and it'll have an additional emergency exit and exit for potential city services adjacent to Hackney Prairie. The property to the north side is in unincorporated Orange County, and they have never come to the city to seek development since I've been here. We've never had them at the table. And we have Arden Park on their western side and this development on the southern side. There will be a brick wall entrance with subdivision signage. There will be a wrought iron fence along Clark Road with columns. There is a tract in between the townhome units and Clark Road. They will be utilizing a joint use of the City of Ocoee Pond. They will provide on the upland buffer to any wetlands and floodplain a trail connection, which will connect to Arden Park as when that property adjacent ever develops in. But from this property all the way down to 80 Mims, there will be the availability of a future passive recreational trail. The property has passed school concurrency, which is a positive, so they're able to come here for this approval tonight. I will lastly provide you there's landscaping is going to be provided with this plan. This is the plan that gets approved and is constructed to. So the next step is groundbreaking, hopefully. They will have a park with a pool and a building with a pool, and this is a concept of I think the builder is going to be Surrey Homes there. The applicant is here. If you have any questions, staff recommends approval.
All right, I'm gonna ask the commissioners first if they have any questions, then I'll open it to the developer. Anybody up here have any questions? John, come in, go.
I do believe it's answered. I could read it here and everything. Is that there's a 10-foot wide pathway that's going to go to the lake for
Yes.
people that are not residents of the
Yes.
area? Because
You can see this, good question, yes, this entrance point.
where is it? Where is it?
Pedestrian
Oh, okay.
entrance.
What road? What's the road coming off of that?
That's Clark.
That's Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Is that it, John?
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
I just have a question. I guess I'm inquisitive. When I noticed they were all 2-story, and maybe just tell me, is there a reason no one's doing 1 stories anymore?
I think cost.
Hold it.
Oh, yeah, you gotta
Come up to the podium.
Sorry. I was just inquisitive about that.
No.
Give
Peter
us your
Palermo,
name.
Owner of PRJ LLC of the property. Yeah, one story, it's not conducive. You never get enough land space to make a big enough unit at one story. So 2 stories is usually the way to go on townhouses.
Okay, no, I just knew Crestwood Heights had just a few of them, and then it seems like I've seen, most everyone just has 2 stories
Yeah,
now.
sometimes,
I'm getting old, I'm sorry. I'm
sometimes they
looking.
have an end unit that's a 1 story, but it's more conducive, it's more beneficial to make all 2 stories.
Okay, thank you.
All right, before I pass it along, I want to ask you, is there any way to put the garages in the back? Load
There's no
them
way.
in the back?
Yeah, you're talking about the new construction now where they have alleyways. There's not really any room for that.
So that would be the view from Clark Road?
No, that's a view from the drive inside, and Clark Road, you'd have trees.
Oh, okay, so Clark Road's behind.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Firstman.
No, I don't have any
Commissioner
comments.
Oliver.
Well, that's my district, so I do have a question about that. You said there's going to be a gated area on Clark Road, or there was a fencing
Yeah,
area?
there's fence, yeah, the entryway will have blocks and designs in that, and then as you leave the entranceway, you'll have gates, a fence with columns in that,
Yes.
every certain amount of feet, and then the sidewalk in front of that.
In addition to that, we said there's 88 units
Correct.
with 2-car garage parking, which is, on an average, most households have about 2 cars. So you're looking at almost 200 cars. So I'm concerned about Clark Road. What are we doing, or what is the plan, and when is that to happen, if it is going to happen, to expand Clark Road? Because again, you're talking about putting another 200 cars on the roads. We already have congestion
Yes.
right at Clark and
Yes.
Claricone, Ocoee, and then there's another almost 500 homes being built not too far from there. So what is the
Gotcha.
plan?
Good question, yeah. So you can't look at this as adding 200 cars to the road. These properties in this PUD, all of these tracks, they're all vested. How did they get vested? They provided the right-of-way and the construction of Clark Road. So the properties within this Prairie Lake PUD are vested. How did they get vested? They mitigated. How did they mitigate? They provided the right-of-way for Clark Road. If you see in this area on Clark Road on the west side, you see a curb. That's the future median. This development not only provided construction of Clark Road, but it provided the right-of-way as well. When the developer did that, it vested, these trips are already programmed in to the background because of the vesting back in the
1990s.
Okay. Long time ago.
1990s. So this property is not adding new trips. The trips are in the background whenever we planned to do, when we did Clark Road improvements, when we 4-lane Clark Roads, the trips for this property were already in the background.
Okay, well, again, maybe I'm not
The developer.
abreast of the science behind this and how this goes, but have you been on Clark Road in the past 3 weeks at 5 o'clock and see how backed up
Yes.
it really is? So,
Yes.
so when you say this, and I'm thinking about what I see now, and now you're talking about, again, another 200 cars being added to that. The science don't quite add up to me. I just see another 200 cars being added to what I already see.
Right. So, for instance, when the property that said adjacent to the north is still in the county, but when that property comes in, it will be required to do a transportation study to study the effects of its traffic. On this application for this development, they did not require a transportation study because that study was already done in the creation and the approval for these parcels. So that's why we don't have to look at this parcel again. They've made their mitigation in the past. So part of their improvements, yes, but you're also seeing a turn lane that is being provided into the site. And back when we looked at this development back in the 90s, it indicated there would need to be a left turn lane into this track. And this track was specifically approved as medium density, meaning up to 8 units and acres, for townhomes. It just took from the 90s to 2018 for it to develop out.
So you're saying is there going to be a left turn lane heading north, right?
Heading north into the site.
Heading north into the subdivision?
Yes.
So that means that, are you going to widen the road enough so you can actually have a middle medium to actually put that turn lane right in the middle? How, and if that's the case, how far would that middle medium go from, let's just say from Hackney Prairie all the way up to the subdivision?
Right. So you can see the edge of pavement and the curb and the property line. So there's future right-of-way for a future widening of Clark Road. The left turn lane on this road is, I believe, about 125 feet deep, to answer your question for how far back. So this is sort of their on-site transportation requirement. And then in the past, they provided right-of-way and construction of Clark Road.
And this will be done in conjunction with the construction of the...
Yes, this is the plan. Yeah, there's plans that show how this turn lane is being constructed. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but it's in your set. And they will put that improvement in with this. Yes, sir.
I would just like to see more studies on that as far as the traffic patterns is concerned. More recent, more up-to-date traffic patterns on that. That's my take on it.
All right, anybody else got any questions? I will say that back in the process, when this was being designed, when we took over Clark Road, that study was done, transportation study was done back in the process. And the part of allocating the right-of-way property and all that was done, that was a long time ago. But we also cannot control what happens on the county part, where everybody rides down our road. That's our road, but everybody comes down it. You know, when you put Clark Road, it used to be a dirt road, and when we took it from the county and built it, all of a sudden, everybody started using it, so they come from Apopka, anywhere, so that's what happens.
Seeing a similar situation on the north side of Ocoee Road at Clark Road.
Yeah.
That's a Clark Road extension, that Oak Trail Reserve, designed, engineered, permitted, and is constructing presently a future extension of Clark Road. That's part of their transportation study, their mitigation. It just so happens that that parcel is developing at the same time as the approvals, where a lot of the parcels along Clark Road, all these subdivisions, Prairie Lake Reserve and such, they developed right away. This tract is lagged out there.
All right.
So,
All right, I'm gonna open it up to the public. Anybody in the public have any comments on item number 10? Developer, have anything else you want to say? No. That's good. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing and bring it back to the podium. Do I hear a motion?
approval of the preliminary
your-
final site plan.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I'm not comfortable at this time to even make a motion about this, because again, I still have reservations about the traffic and what I see right now with the traffic.
I'll be happy to make the motion.
Well,
I'm sorry.
so you're saying you don't want the development?
I'm not saying I don't want the development, but what I'm saying is I would actually really like to see a more up-to-date traffic survey, traffic study as to what's going on right now. I mean, I know it's been done, but again, I see what I see, and I know what the frustrations of the citizens in that area, what they go through right now.
I know, I live in the same place I go through the roads, but I'm just telling you that was done under the prefix of that property being there and prior. So, all right, I need a motion.
I'll just say one thing, Commissioner Oliver, I know it's easy for us to say we've been here for a while, some of us, but we remember when it was gonna be an ALF, and I remember the balloons down there showing us, I forget what the balloons were supposed to show us.
The height of the building.
Oh, the height of the building, okay, there was something, and there was different factors that we were looking at in there, and, that's, I guess, what makes me comfortable to make the motion at this point for that, and I realize it's your district, but I think over the years, I've seen Clark Road change, and you see what Clark Road's going to be. I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend the, mayor and the city commission approve the I just make the motion to approve the preliminary and final subdivision plan for Sierra Place at Lake Meadow.
All right, The motion made by Commissioner Wilson, I just asked the city lawyer, we have no right to deny it on traffic issues. So that's one of the reasons I'm telling you, we have no right to deny the development for traffic issues because of what was done.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Wilson, do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Grovey. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Opposed, Mr. Oliver. All right. That's it. Thank you. Number 11. Second reading of ordinance for Vaughn property, 451 Ocoee Apopka Road, annexation and initial rezoning.
Mr. Jones.
Good evening.
Landon Jones.
For the record, Dwayne Jones, Planner One. This is a second reading of ordinance for the project called Bond Annexation and Rezoning. The property is located at 451 Ocoee Apopka Road. It is on the east side of Ocoee Apopka Road and about 1,650 feet north of Silver Star Road. This property is seeking annexation to connect water service at the front of the property. If you look at the aerial photo, you'll see that there's an existing single-family home. The property is 0.83 acres. As you can also see from the aerial, there's some additional accessory structures at the front of the property and also towards the back of the property. We spoke with the homeowner to agree to clean up and spruce up that area and remove those accessory structures. Some of some of the accessory structures in the back are part of Whispering Winds, but she did agree to clean that out. So this is a early 2018 aerial. The city's requested rezoning is R1 AAA zoning, and the future land use is low-density residential, which complies with an R1 AAA zoning. Upon annexation, this homeowner will receive trash and water service as well as police and fire assistance. Are there any questions at this time?
All right, you gonna read?
So the first is the annexation ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, annexing into the corporate limits of the City of Ocoee, Florida, certain real property containing approximately 0.83 acres located on the east side of Ocoee Apopka Road, 1,650 feet north of Silver Star Road, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding said annexation to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, the Ocoee City Code, and the Joint Planning Area Agreement, providing for and authorizing the updating of official city maps, providing direction to the city clerk, providing for severability, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for an effective date. I can read the other one. This is the rezoning ordinance, an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, changing the zoning classification from Orange County A1 agricultural to Ocoee R1 AAA, single-family dwelling on certain real property containing approximately 0.83 acres, located on the east side of Ocoee Apopka Road, 1,650 feet north of Silver Star Road, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding such zoning to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, the Ocoee City Code, and the Joint Planning Area Agreement, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city zoning map, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing, and then after we close the public hearing and bring it back, we need two separate motions. All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Anybody have any comments on the Vaughn property, 451 Ocoee Apopka Road? All right, no comments, bring it back to the podium, close the public hearing. I need a motion for second reading of the annexation ordinance.
I make a motion to approve the annexation ordinance.
Motion made by Commissioner First, do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right, now I need a motion for rezoning ordinance, second reading.
I make a motion to approve the rezoning ordinance.
Motion made by Commissioner First, do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Let's vote.
I'm sorry, Mayor. If you wanted to, I think you have to open a public hearing and close it for that one
Both
as
of them,
well.
I did them both. You have to separate?
Yeah, he opened them both for the.
I opened up, read both of them. Yep. Huh?
Making sure.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked him. All right, second reading, number 12, of ordinance amending the Land Development Code concerning the Planning and Zoning Commission, Planning Agency, and the Board of Adjustment. City Planner Room.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Mike Rumor, City Planner. The item, again, is a second reading of an ordinance, and this ordinance is looking at amending the Ocoee Land Development Code concerning the makeup and the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the makeup and duties of the Board of Adjustment. As you've seen recently with some of the citation board and work that was done with the code enforcement board, splitting that board into a magistrate and keeping a volunteer board. The city has been looking at its boards in regards to their function and opportunities as the city continues to press forward with not only work in our downtown and CRA, but as you can see with the brownfield overlay, all areas of the city, and the continued increase in development we're seeing citywide. The staff has been evaluating the boards and specifically the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustment. For a little background, the Board of Adjustment hears variance appeals, which would be an appeal to a setback or a land development code item regarding location of additions or accessory structures. And the Planning and Zoning Commission is a board that has a statutory requirement, and it reviews items such as it's the land planning agency, it's in charge of the comprehensive plan, and then it also has land development code duties, and specifically in City of Ocoee, they review annexations, rezonings, and site plan approvals in their different processes. The city is changing remarkably, and I'm excited to be a part of it in my 13 years here. I provided a map here. Here's a map of, I took sort of the north side of the city and kind of looked at this is showing the large vacant parcels that are available for development. With the Sierra Place right before, this is the property. Property to the north is a large piece that's available for development. It is not located with any of our special overlay areas. We have the Buckman property, which has a residential zoning, and this properties are located in our 429 overlay. Specifically, it's in the interchange overlay. And then we have the Eagle Creek property, which has an approved subdivision for townhomes and single-family homes that has been approved, and they've paid some mitigation cost and some school mitigation. So this project is vested, but it's undeveloped. Really not a lot of large acres of development that may come in under our existing land development code or under the overlay. And sort of the south part of the city, we have properties near the mall. It is not located in an overlay. We have the target area, the properties on McGuire and 50, which is located in target area 1. There's the Heller property, which is located in the CRA. You have the other Heller property, and there's a parcel on Roberson Road. All the rest of these parcels are in for development. We have ALF, we have the Pet Paradise, we have another ALF breaking ground, and we're reviewing on this piece an adult living, senior adult 55 or over community that was just recently submitted. And so development patterns, which we expect to see, is a lot of future into development in our CRA and our downtown, and that review is going to change for staff and the commissions. We're going to be looking in the future at how buildings that presently in our land development code require a large setback for the building, and a 25-foot requires a lot of parking. We're going to be looking at sites and site plans that are going to create a sense of place and fulfill the visions of the 429 overlay, the CRA, or the downtown. So it'll be a review of placemaking. It'll be sort of an architectural review. And in the guidelines in these areas, for instance, there's no landscape buffer. The idea is it's going to look like Bluford Avenue does on the recently opened portion. You're going to have these wide sidewalks, street trees, and then storefronts. As a matter of fact, the maximum building setback is up to 15 feet, 0 to 15 feet in a lot of these. So it's going to be a different type of review than we're used to, requiring lots of open space, lots of parking. We're reducing the parking in these areas because we're providing on-street parking. In the future, there may be parking garages, so those parking requirements are greatly reduced. So specifically, what are we here for? We have an ordinance that's looking to amend the functions and makeup of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Presently, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a 9-member board. And the change in this ordinance is going to amend that to a membership of 5 members appointed by the City Commission. There is a change that the school board was always a member, but a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission can be a resident or someone that owns real property. It provides for a makeup of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If this ordinance is adopted, the present Planning and Zoning Commission of 9 members has to dissolve. We're going to have, this calls for a new 5-member Planning and Zoning Commission. There is an associated resolution after this ordinance, if it is adopted, which will create the parameters for the dissolution of the Planning and Zoning and the creation and the new Planning and Zoning Commission and a new meeting time. At the end of this process, if this ordinance is passed, the city clerk and city attorney will also provide you some more guidance on that next, how the members are selected. We're looking to amend the meeting attendance of Planning and Zoning Commission. Presently, there's an older resolution that mentions if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, you can be removed from the Planning and Zoning Commission. The ordinance provides for if you miss an absence by any member of 3 meetings, a year can cause for removal of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It also changes the time, changes the number, and it also discusses the existing Planning and Zoning Commission. Duties, we're looking to amend the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission. One big item we're looking to do is add the variance process, which is currently reviewed under the Board of Adjustment. I can tell you in my 13 years with the city, we've held maybe my fingers and toes that many meetings at most. The Board of Adjustment does not have a set meeting date each month. Variances are many times, because of the uncertainty of dates and uncertainty of the process, a property owner figures out a situation or staff helps them figure out a way to not require the variance, but we do carry them forward when they present the application, and there's a normal application fee. So we're looking to provide the variance process to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission would have a set date, the 2nd Tuesday of the month, and we feel that having that continuity will allow more variances to be brought forward, and people will feel assured they're going to see the City Commission sometime in 6 months. They want their patio or shed, today, so that we feel that this will be an added benefit to the residents. With regards to site plans, we are looking to remove site plan process. There's 2 steps. You can combine them, just like the Sierra Place subdivision. They combined the preliminary and the final. The preliminary site plan and subdivision process requires public hearings. A final plan requires approval on a consent agenda. So if you have an applicant like they did today where they combine the process, they just go through the Planning and Zoning Commission once, City Commission once. But if they choose to separate that, they have the 2 public hearings and then the 2 agendas on consent. We're looking to remove the final site plan and final subdivision plan review from the planning and zoning. Provide the opportunity for review under the board adjustment duties of variances. They will retain all of their responsibilities under the comprehensive plan, annexations, rezonings. They will see all the preliminary plans as they do now. The provisions of variance are going to be provided under the planning and zoning. So as an applicant applies, they'll see what the Planning and Zoning Commission is looking for. Those meetings will be public hearings. As I said, the process for approving final site plans has been removed. The Planning and Zoning Commission has requested to be added into the ordinance, and I've provided the meeting minutes. It's just a draft. We haven't had a Planning and Zoning meeting to confirm those meeting minutes. But the Planning and Zoning Commission has asked to see small-scale site plans. Presently, under the Land Development Code, a small-scale site plan is a commercial development or non-residential development of 25,000 square feet or less. And by code, that approval process is done administratively by staff. The Planning and Zoning Commission is asking to see small-scale site plans in the size of 10,000 square feet or more. I believe I've covered, and then there's some cleanup to the background of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Most of the stated requirements meet the intent of Florida statute, but we just took those items and made them read exactly as Florida statute reads. So their duties will accurately reflect exactly what Florida statute says they're to do. I believe with that, I'm able to entertain any questions.
All right. What I'm going to do is go ahead and open it to the public. And I have one form, Mr. Gregory Keither. 5 minutes. Anybody else? Any public have comments to this? Did you fill out this yet? You need to fill one of these out? Sir, time's yours.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Keithler, and my address is 2430 Orsota Circle in Ocoee. As I said at the last commission meeting, it's been my distinct privilege to serve on the Ocoee Planning and Zoning Commission for the past 5 years and then some. It's clear by the magnitude of the changes being proposed that there's a desire for change in the Planning and Zoning Commission. After all, the existing ordinance dates back to 1989. Regardless of your deliberations and decisions on this matter tonight, I would be honored to be able to continue to serve on the commission if that opportunity is afforded to me. That said, I beg your indulgence in offering some suggestions for your consideration tonight. At the last meeting, I made several observations about the proposed ordinance to include correcting the record as to the prevalence of P&Z meeting cancellations due to a lack of quorum. Tonight, I'd like to focus on 3 of the proposed changes, namely the membership eligibility, the number of members on the commission, and the matter of reviewing site plans. Regarding membership, I and the rest of the P&Z members present at the last meeting, as well as all of the Ocoee residents I've communicated with on this matter, feel very strongly that only residents of the city of Ocoee should serve on the commission. This is certainly consistent with the recent election results wherein the voters mandated that future city managers reside in the city. More than that, though, opening membership to anyone who owns real property in the city is fraught with downsides, not the least of which is that those of us who live in Ocoee have the largest stake in how it develops and the planning and zoning issues that entails. A dispassionate observer could very reasonably conclude that a non-resident would serve on the commission only to further his or her financial interests. And even if that wasn't actually true, it would present an undeniable appearance that the city has and should continue to strive to avoid. I'd like to ask you to reconsider that particular change. Second, I'd like to offer that reducing the number of members from 9 to 5 and forcing automatic removal of any member who misses more than 2 meetings in a given year will not result in the desired outcome of reducing cancellations due to a lack of a quorum. Numerically, with 9 members, given that members can miss 2 meetings in a year, mathematics shows that the odds of a cancellation in a given year due to a lack of quorum are about 1 in 10. That's with 9 members. Reducing the number of members to 5 under the same circumstances actually more than triples the odds of a cancellation due to a lack of a quorum to 1 in 3. Moreover, the chances are great that at least one member will miss more than 2 meetings due to circumstances beyond their control. For example, last year I had knee replacement surgery, and the only reason I didn't miss more than 2 meetings was one was canceled by the city. And that would automatically reduce the number of members to 4, which makes the odds of having to cancel a meeting due to a lack of a quorum even higher. My suggestion is to leave the number of members at 9, or if you want to reduce it to no less than 7. And then instead of automatic removal, require that the P&Z Commission itself forward a recommendation to the City Commission upon a member's third absence as to whether that member should be retained or not. These changes will reduce the odds of not meeting a quorum and will reduce the churn in membership and the associated burden on the City Commission to generate up to 10 nominees for each vacant position, which is what the new changes require. Finally, the proposed changes remove final site plans from P&Z review. The problem is that this leaves only the preliminary site plans for review, and these typically contain only the barest of details. To reduce the review to just preliminary site plans is essentially to eliminate any meaningful review. I think the City Commission would be very well served by allowing the P&Z to continue to view all final site plans and make recommendations accordingly. In fact, the P&Z members present at the last meeting were unanimous that the criteria for such reviews for both P&Z and the City Commission should be lowered from 25,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. Thank you very much for your time and attention and the opportunity to address you tonight. If you would like to consider postponing action on this matter tonight, I'd be gratified to have the opportunity to meet with each of you to discuss modifying this ordinance to achieve the improvements you seek in the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
All right. We have one other speaker, Rob McKee.
Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Grogan, Mr. Wilson, Attorney Goodson, and Mayor Johnson, Commissioner Persner, and welcome the new Commissioner George Oliver, and to the City Manager and to the clerks. I guess I'd like to say thank you for all the years I've been involved in this process, to all of you and all the staff. And although I'm deeply disturbed by this process, this is in no means degradation of my opinion of the staff and their performance. I'm not sure where this change comes from. My feeling is that we're trying to fix something that's not broken. I think it has worked well all the years. By the way, I'm speaking to you as the chairman of that committee, and Greg is the vice chair. I've been on it much longer than most people there. I'd just like to recognize through the people besides myself and Greg, Jim Sills, which you all know, he's been here for a long time. A new planning person is Marissa Evans, professional planner. Donald Richmond, a businessman. Roger Winderlook, who's a veteran of many experienced years. Robert Henderson, and Eric Frommer. All these people are a broad spectrum of experience and expertise. Myself have been in construction industry for many years, project manager, et cetera. Remember the PMP. But, because that was one of the issues raised, that maybe we don't have the expertise to handle the programs that come through. So I second everything that Greg has said about the proposed changes to the Planning and Zoning Land Development Code portion. And I guess I'd like to say that it's not broken, let's not fix it. In the past, boards I've served on where there's been 5 members, we've had to cancel many meetings or couldn't complete the business because quorum wasn't there. Let's just say everything that Greg said I second. And I think it should be brought to your attention that the commission was pretty much unanimous, except for one person who had one minor, something he felt strong enough about to vote against it, but there was a majority 4-1. We did have our 5, have our quorum. The other thing is, was the planning and zoning comments put in your packet? Did you guys get to see what we were saying individually? I
Yeah,
don't know if it was on-
those draft minutes were put in the packet, yes. They're draft
Yeah.
because we didn't have a official P and Z to approve them, so they're still draft.
And I guess at this point, I'd like to ask you, do you have any questions of me, since I'm chairman of that committee, that you might feel could answer questions you may be raised by the proposal? As I say, I don't know where this idea of streamlining the P and Z came from, and I don't see where it is really necessary. With that, I thank you.
Okay, all right. I was gonna, I meant to say a while ago, I'm gonna close the anybody else in the public have any comments on that issue? Not, I'm gonna close it and bring it back to the podium. The one here I've got, it's got your name on it, is the one sent to you.
I know, I think they were sent to all of us, I just happened to forward
yeah.
those to the city clerk.
I think most of them are from the same area, so I've got them too. I didn't send them, I didn't get back. I was out of the country till last night late, and I didn't get them till today. We're gonna bring it back to the dais and I'm gonna start with Commissioner Oliver. I will say, before I start, that I'm not gonna vote on one part of it. I do not wanna put it where we put it out to the private part. It has to be a citizen. That's one part of the thing that I will say that I don't really wanna have in there, so we'll address that issue, but as far as the rest, we'll need to, I'll let Commissioner Oliver.
I think there's some great points made. I got all the emails, and I've read through all the emails a few days ago. There's some great points made about the sitting on the committee and living in the city and making decisions about what happens within the city as far as our zoning, our planning and zoning. Also, the fact that going down from 9 to 5 in the argument of creating a quorum and canceling of meetings. So I think there's some very legitimate concerns. And, with that being said, I think that some of this, as far as the ordinance that we're trying to pass, I think that it should be looked at again. And I think that there should be some edits or some changes to that fact. So I don't think it should be up for vote tonight.
Commissioner First.
The only issue I have about the changes that are proposed are the residential requirements of the board members. I, like my fellow commissioners and mayor, feel that that residency requirement should be a must. Inviting property owners that do not live in the city, I don't think that serves the city very well. Other than that, I don't see any major problems with the proposed changes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Sure. Okay. I've gone over this a few times, and initially I didn't see problems, but the more I've looked at it, the more I've had problems with it. I agree with what's been said regarding the non-resident of the board. I'm opposed. Our longtime residents have chosen Ocoee as their home, and they should be making up this board. There's some problems regarding changing the structure of the board from 9 to 5. First of all, I'm going to read what I wrote. So, it's my longstanding position that it's beneficial for our city residents to be involved in our city matters by volunteering their time, service, and talents on city boards. I, for one, welcome input from our residents and want them to have a voice in our city government. There should be no further reduction in the total number of board members. Maybe the quorum should be set lower. Because the more I'm reading is that, and I went back and just happened to go through a few of the minutes last night on the website, and it looked as though some of the meetings were canceled by the city. And when you look at the 3 meetings that were canceled due to a lack of quorum, Maybe with 9 folks, we should have a lower quorum. Now, I don't know legally if we're allowed to do that, but you would, because then I went to the next step, saying that in this presentation here, it says that we will allow, it will go to 5 members. Choosing the members will be, each commissioner will put 2 names in, members of the commission, excuse me, not excluding the mayor here. Every member up here will put 2 members in, names in, and we would have geographical diversity and representation. Well, I don't see how you're going to have geographical diversity and representation when 10 names go in, and the names that get chosen could all come from 2 districts. So let's say you 2, all the names came from 3 and 4. Well, 1 and 2 has no representation on the P&Z board. I could not figure out how you would get, based on the way this reads, that you're going to get geographical diversity and representation. Also, when you go to the 3 board members, after 3 unexcused absences, maybe we should have 3 unexcused absences with a 12-month period. They would be removed. You know, we all live, we have a life. Life happens. Sometimes things happen and we can't be there. And by having 9 members, you can still have a quorum with a lower quorum number. But telling folks after 3 meetings you're out is not the feeling that I want to give to our residents, that we want you to come in and be involved in our community. And why not, we have term limits, why do these folks not have, if they're a quasi-judicial, why not just give them term limits? That would be some change within the P&Z board, if that's, I really don't know where we're going at this point. After reading it, it gets very confusing because there's just too many questions. And with these questions, the questions that I have here, that I don't feel I've gotten good enough answers from reading what we were presented tonight, it would not be a positive situation for me to vote on this. Sorry, what?
I have possible 2 things. First one is definitely, I would have to say that it would have to be a resident of the city. It's to their best interest. It just doesn't look good. No matter that we do, it wasn't explained very well about how we have the fail safes for not having a developer on there, not having a realtor on there. We do have fail safes for that in this plan, but it just, overall, I don't believe it would serve a good purpose not to have just all residents on there. And the other thing is that, the only other thing that I'd agree to is the 3 unexcused absences instead of just 3 absences in a year. 3 unexcused but that can't be brought up. If it's 3 unexcused absences, then that means you're out. I mean, as we have it now, we have that in all the other boards too, but I don't know of anybody that's been kicked off a board for absentee. I don't know of any. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even though we have those in place, nobody's been kicked off a board, so, you know, that's all debatable. It all come up to the commission. We never kicked anybody off a board. But with the 3 unexcused absences on this board, I would say absolutely. Without coming into the commission, I think that should happen. So, and I'm okay with the rest of what's in there. We've had some long meetings about the changes and what should happen and why we're doing it, and I will agree to the rest of it, but again, take out I think we're all in agreement with having city residents on the board, and I could see going with 3 unexcused absences other than 2 or excused absences. But I'm willing to, go ahead.
All right. I just want to make a few comments. You know, I know most of these come from the same area, but some of the comments, and everybody has rights to make comments. I think it's our rights, they say. But, you know, when you make comments, don't try to make it where you say, you know, just vote for this or you're totally against the citizens. That's not true. We have an overall city we do things for. Just because somebody says, I'm not voting for this, doesn't make you a bad commissioner or make you a bad person. I mean, people put these comments, like I said, they all come pretty much from the same place, same statements, same writing. That if we don't vote for what this person says, then we're wrong. But when you sit up here, you have to make a decision to do what's right for the whole thing. And sometimes they're not gonna be what somebody wants to hear. But you got people putting this thing in here, which I've never been able to figure that out. When they tell me I'm a voter, if you don't vote this way, then you're wrong. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And maybe I wasn't supposed to say that, but I live with that theory. If you do what you're supposed to do, and you sit up here, you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. You can't be scared to do that. But it just, like I said, I didn't get to read all of them last night when I got home. It was irritating, so I quit. Because they all said the same thing. It's all wrote out from somebody to give to them to write. And it's all from the same area. But when they put that last part about you're not doing your job if you don't vote this way, there's two sides to everything. Some people can't do that, even when they sit up here. So that's just, like I said, I take staff report. You know, I do say that, like I said to start with a while ago, I would not put a private developer or anybody like that on it. I also said if you guys sat on that commission that put term limits in, which is fine with me, when the citizens vote to put it, it goes for everybody else too. All the boards we need to change them to term limits, where they'll be on term limits, just like we are up here. That's what the citizens want. So, all right. Any more comments from anybody up here? I need a motion. You got what first? All right. First of all, you read then we'll have the motions.
Go ahead and read the ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, amending Section 3-2 of the City of Ocoee Land Development Code relating to the Planning and Zoning Commission, providing for a 5-member Planning and Zoning Commission, providing for a method by which members will be appointed by the mayor and city commissioners, amending the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission, amending Section 4-3C and paragraph 4-4G3 of the City of Ocoee Land Development Code to remove final site plan and final subdivision plan review from the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission, amending Section 4-9 of the City of Ocoee Land Development Code and Section 34-39 of the City of Ocoee Land Code of Ordinances to allow the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider matters previously under the jurisdiction of the Board of Adjustment, amending Section 3-3 of the City of Ocoee Land Development Code, dissolving the City of Ocoee Board of Adjustment, repealing City of Ocoee Ordinance 89-19, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
And the other thing, real quick, if I'm not mistaken, the staff's not gonna take the members off, it's gonna be to us. It's not the staff, they keep putting that in this too, that the staff's gonna be taking, existing members off. Plus, you can still put back your person out of your district on that board. You get to vote for that person. If I'm not, is that not right?
That's right.
No, it said that what it says in here, if I'm.
You get to nominate and then you
You
vote.
nominate two.
You get to vote
And then
for
it comes back before us, whereas, and I've tried to think, I'm sorry, I just tried to think that one through last night, that when you put 10 members down, okay, let's say you choose, you put your 1 to 5, you put your 1 to 5. The way I looked at it is it could very easily go, it does not follow that, I'm sorry, I put my notes away, geographical, because it could end up being 1 or 2 districts has everyone on it.
Well, I would hope whoever you put into your district, you're gonna vote for them.
Right, but I'm just saying is that I think when you bring it back to actual paper, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I need a mathematician here, but it could very easily not, you could lose some of your districts. And that's the way, I mean, quite frankly, the
Well-
way that's written. So the way I look at it is that, and maybe I'm wrong, but the way that our attorney just read that, if you have any problems with anything on there, you have to vote no. Am I correct? Because any part of this
Make a motion on the motion.
would be, just so when you're voting, please correct me, I'd love to ask you that, I know.
Yeah.
But if you vote, if someone makes the motion to approve this, but yet you don't like having a non-city resident on the board, and you vote yes, you just voted to put them on.
No, we can take that out.
Okay, that's what I'm trying,
We have to take a motion to take that out.
This is the second reading, so you can.
okay, so I just want to make sure that we,
That's what I said, I gotta have a motion to take that out.
Right.
So, all right, I need a
Okay.
motion, if everybody's against the part with the outside, I need a motion to take that out of the,
This would be a motion to remove the requirement or to keep the requirement that all members of the Planning and Zoning Commission be city residents and remove landowners or property owners within the city who are not residents.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson for that issue. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Forster. All right, let's vote. All right, that carries unanimously. Now, I need the motion for staff's recommendation.
Can I make a motion that we retain the 9 members with a lower quorum, a quorum of 3?
3.
Make it a 9-member board, maintaining the 9-member board, but making a quorum of 3, which equals the same thing as the 5 to 3.
Can
That's-
we do that?
Yeah, I'd have to look at that. I
I
don't
don't
know
think
that
we
we
can
could have a
with
quorum less than 50% of the
Quorum
members.
has to be,
It's a percentage of the amount of people that you have.
what's the quorum now on that board? 5 out of 9?
Yeah, it'd be
Yes.
4
I
plus 1.
think that's Robert's Rules of Order.
4, no, that math isn't right, Mr.
All right.
I'd like,
Don should last a second.
okay, well, I'll make the motion that, I'm gonna keep making motions. I'll make the motion that we maintain the 9-member board.
All right, motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Oliver. All right, let's vote. That fails. All right, do I hear another motion?
I'll make the motion that it takes 3 unexcused absences in 1 year to remove the member.
Change would be to the ordinance to require or to add unexcused absences as just opposed to 3 absences within a calendar year. They would have to be unexcused absences.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
As determined by the chair of the
Clerk.
Planning and Zoning?
They call into
I
the
would,
clerk's
I
office.
would say staff, either the city manager or planner.
I'll tell you how it presently works is they either call and say, I can't make it, and that's excused, or
Well,
they
no,
don't
they-
show up, that's unexcused. There's
That's
really no
not
litmus-
excused.
There's no litmus test that we use, it's just,
Well, then how would we, so it's just an absence is an absence then?
under the present new policy, it would be 3 absences.
Absences,
Yes.
whether it's excused, because there's no such thing as you can't differentiate from one or the other.
We don't have a process to make that call.
Okay, then I will make it 3, I will just change that to 3 absences in a year.
Well,
So that's already
that's the
Right?
way
That's
it
what
is
it is
now.
now.
Yes.
I kept hearing 2.
Well, because he's saying, once you miss 2, another miss, you're off.
Okay,
So
so it is 3.
It's the 3rd miss, you're off.
Okay,
It's-
then I don't make any
so
changes.
really-
Well, 3 unexcused, I'm sorry, go back.
So the way the ordinance is drafted now, if you miss 3 meetings, whether you call ahead or don't call ahead, you're off. What Mike was suggesting, or what Mike was saying was, if you did unexcused absences, the way the city determines now whether it's an unexcused absence or not is if the person called ahead. If they just called ahead and said they weren't going to be there, that would be considered an unexcused absence. If they just didn't show up without telling anybody, then that would be
That's
an unexcused
But
absence.
excused
Right.
is by calling in.
That's right.
You can't, so there's no differentiation.
Well, there is a differentiation. It's
Yeah, there is, they call.
calling
into the
ahead
clerk's
or not
office.
calling ahead.
If you call into the clerk's office, you have an excused absence. So, you know,
So anybody can call, there's no reason.
well, but the thing is, you realize people have problems in their life and they may not be able to make it.
Same with us up here.
That's right, we
Can you
could,
make it, Tony? You've been up more than 3 times?
All right,
not
that's
here.
settled. It's in there. You're leaving it like it is.
How about a no-call,
Yeah,
no-show
we
policy?
can't,
All right, well,
No-call, no-show policy.
I'm sorry,
A no-call, no-show policy would actually be an unexcused absence.
that would be,
And as far as calling in, saying you can't make it, I'm in the hospital, broke my leg, or my wife's having a baby or something like that, that would be an excused absence.
right.
But just a no-call,
You'll
no-show
have a
policy
broke leg if you
would
don't
cover
show
that.
up with that.
So are you in favor of that or not?
Well, in favor of a no-call, no-show policy,
So that's
that would be unexcused. You just didn't call, you didn't show up, that's unexcused.
if that's a motion, I'll second it, I don't know.
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt a no-call, no-show policy.
All right,
So that would be amending the ordinance to provide for missing 3 unexcused absences would be removal, as opposed to just absences.
changing it to
Is that,
more than 3
wait a minute,
unexcused.
that's not what he
Is that
said.
what-
I say we add in just a blurb to say that how we identify unexcused absences as a no-call, no-show policy.
That is how they identify it. That is how the city.
That's how it's identified in that right now, yeah.
That's the same, so we don't need a motion for it? It's in there?
Yeah, so again, right now, it's, you miss 3 meetings, whether you have an excuse or don't have an excuse, whether you call ahead or don't call ahead, you're off. I think what is being suggested is we say, if you miss 3 meetings without calling ahead, without letting anyone know, that would be 3 unexcused absences, and it would require 3 unexcused absences to come off the board in any calendar year.
But what's to prevent somebody from calling every single meeting and not showing up at any?
Well, you know, you only have 5 members and somebody starts doing that.
Well, this
You
is,
got a
this is
problem.
what's to prevent people from not showing up.
What's a quorum if you don't, if you have 5 members, it's 3.
Right. If you have somebody keeps calling in,
Right, you got someone.
All right,
calling in,
let's get to,
he never shows up.
is,
We hope that.
what
the people that-
Commissioner Oliver said, is that what we've got?
Is that your motion, Commissioner Oliver?
Yes, that would be my motion.
I will second that.
All right, motion made. You want to tell me what it is?
Yeah, so this would be a change to the ordinance to require 3 unexcused absences for removal as opposed to just 3 absences.
All right.
I got one question. Can I ask you? What happens to the excused absences? Do we allow someone to keep calling on every meeting? I doubt it would ever happen, but if we're going this far, what if someone calls in 5 times in a year saying that he can't make it?
Under
There's nothing
Commissioner
to-
Oliver's motion, nothing would happen. You could
Correct.
call in as many times as you want.
So
and
I
those
think
would
there should be a
unexcused
motion on
absences.
top of that. I mean, we're really getting into the weeds here,
Well, we
but
have
maybe
to.
there should be a motion on top of that about unexcused absences and how many of those you can
Well,
take a year.
Let me,
I mean,
ask
yeah.
the city.
All right, wait a minute, I got a motion on the floor and I got a second.
I-
So any more discussion on that? We'll either go with that or
We'll go with that one right now.
go against it, so
Okay.
vote. All right, that carries, so that's fine. All right, now to the other. Anybody got any more changes to?
Okay, hold on, let me go through my notes here if you don't
Do we
mind.
want to allow, I'm
Oh.
asking a question to the commission. Do we want to allow somebody to have unlimited amount of unexcused absences? Or, I'm sorry,
Excused absences.
Excused absences.
With that in mind, let me ask the city attorney. Would it be appropriate, I mean, the ordinance will say no more than 3 unexcused absences. Do we put the provisions that they're talking about adding in a process for determining in the resolution behind it? So if you don't like it, you don't have to amend the ordinance and go through, you're just amending the resolution. Potentially, that's a better place to land that unless we can encapsulate it in this section B.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can have in the ordinance 3 unexcused absences and then define unexcused absences in the resolution. And we could define, if you wanted, to have the limit on the number of excused absences as kind of part of that definition in the resolution.
Give them the benefit of 1 more. That's it, maximum 4.
How many meetings a year? Roughly 12, 10 to 12?
12, at most, you possibly have, 2 additional special meetings. So you could have up to 12, but
So you
it's
could have
12
meetings.
calendar. There's usually, some cancellations due to projects not being in line, but you could look at no more than 12.
We passed that motion. So now, we need a motion for the staff's recommendation. What's left of it?
Which is,
It's everything that was in the proposal except for not outside citizens or, and
Okay,
the
all right.
3
hold on.
Unexcused.
absences.
What about, it was mentioned earlier about doing term limits on this. Is this an opportunity can you add something to this? Where you can add no
I
more than
think-
2 3-year terms, and that's, I mean, I know that, Mayor, you
3-year terms.
mentioned about that all these boards should, and we have just, the citizens just spoke and said they want us to have
Yep.
term limits.
Why not the same, two
Why
four-year
not
terms?
2, well, it's 3, it says 3 years in the ordinance, so I was thinking 2 3-year terms. That,
Make the motion.
I'll make a motion to add to that we will have 2 3-year terms serving on this board,
Right.
and you must be off the board for 1 full term before you can reapply. Does that make sense?
I would rather see 3 years. You
Well, I
said
said 3 years.
No, I'd say set out 3 years.
Well, that's what I mean, setting out, yeah, 1 full term is 3 years.
One
'cause
full term, all right.
One
All
full,
right.
setting out one.
Motion made.
Yeah, 1 full term.
Motion made for
Which is
term
3 years.
limits, 2 3-year term limits. Would you set out 1 term before you apply again? Here's a second.
I'll second it.
Second it. All right, let's vote. All right,
Okay, one second.
now,
Now let me just make sure I got my,
I'll make a motion for staff, rest of the staff recommendations.
motion made
You're
by
not giving me a chance, huh?
Commissioner Grogan. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner First. No more, any more comments before I say vote?
I'm,
All right, let's vote. All right, motion carries.
with me
With,
voting,
with Commissioner Wilson abstaining.
and I will tell you why I voted no. And-
You already told us a while ago.
Well, I did, but I'm gonna tell you again, just for a quick one, is I really want to keep it to a 9-member board. I want to keep it to a 9-member board.
All right, let's adopt the
That's-
resolution.
All right, we're not done yet. Back up. Oh, okay. We gotta do the, all right, we're gonna open the public hearing. Do I need to open it?
Yeah, no, that's not a public hearing.
No, no public.
But let me go
hearing.
ahead and read the title of the ordinance, of the resolution,
Oh,
if
you're
that's
right.
okay.
Yeah, it does say,
What does it say?
right here. No, that's not, this is.
Right,
read it.
yes. We did open it
We didn't.
for the ordinance, right?
Yeah, but we haven't voted on it.
Yeah.
We just did, didn't
We
We
just did.
we? Yeah,
We're mo-
yeah.
It's been a late
All
night.
right, go ahead.
Let me go ahead and read the title to the resolution. This is a resolution of the City of Ocoee, Florida relating to the Planning and Zoning Commission, providing for a meeting time, providing for dissolution of the existing 9-member Planning and Zoning Commission, providing a timeline for appointment and training of the 5-member Planning and Zoning Commission approved in ordinance number 2018-021, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right, we need to vote for that.
Yeah,
I
so,
need a motion for
so
the
this would
resolution.
be per staff recommendation with the inclusion of a definition of an unexcused absence in the resolution.
Do I hear that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Firstner, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oliver. Let's vote. All right.
I think I had to vote no to stay consistent with my.
All right,
Can we just go over the process?
Yes, we need to go over the process,
new-
Mayor, for,
go ahead. You know we're running into time limit here.
This is like, well, we're still good, because remember, we start 7:15.
Oh, I know.
So,
Believe me, I know.
So the way we have this set up would be, we would appoint the new 5 board members at the next city commission meeting on June 5th. Each elected official would come up with 2 names and their contact information, provide that to the city clerk by Friday, May 25th, so it could be included in the June 5th agenda packet. The city clerk will forward to all of you the list of current board members, the list of current members of the Board of Adjustment, and any applications that the city has on file, so that you can choose whatever members or residents you want to choose to be on that board. So once the city clerk has all of the names and contact information from each of you, then she'll send out an updated board application to each of those members to have them reapply, and then provide that in the June 5th meeting agenda. At the June 5th meeting, we'll have the names of those that have been recommended by the City Commission And the city commission would then rank, would receive a tally sheet and would rank the members from highest to lowest, kind of like we did for which one? The Charter Review Commission. And then we would tally the number of votes per member to determine which of the 5 members got the most votes, and those would be the 5 members on the commission, or on the P&Z commission. So again, get your names in by May 25th, Friday, May 25th, so that we can get the names on the agenda and applications out to those individuals.
Can I ask a question? Do we have 2 alternates out of that total? We don't?
No
All right, just ask.
Can we go back?
I
and
can't
put
believe nobody
alternates
didn't ask that, but.
in? Can we go back and put alternates in? What's the possibility of going back and revisiting that to the point of having 2 alternates?
Well, we're down to 5 members, right?
Right?
We're recommending, we're actually, we're recommending 2, it's late. We're recommending 2, right?
Yeah.
That's 10. So why couldn't, based on a point system, why can't you just choose your alternates from that point system?
That's what I'm asking.
But it's not, well, we didn't put it.
We didn't put that in there, we'd have to.
Oh, we did not.
Is it
no.
too
It didn't put
late?
in the ordinance.
Correct.
It didn't read that way.
Is it too late?
So is it too late to, yeah.
We all look at the
Yeah.
attorney.
So we've adopted the ordinance as modified, so if we wanted to, I don't think it's appropriate for the resolution. We would need to reopen the item on the ordinance to add that as something to include in the change.
And let me just interject that the Planning and Zoning Commission used to be 7 members and 2 alternates. And then you've got these 2 alternates, they get in, they don't mesh, they don't see the project at
Right, I
PUD
think-
rezone,
I
they get
think-
it at site
yeah.
plan, so then they made the 2 alternates members. So if you do 5 and 2, then you're gonna do 7 and 2, and
Well, they don't have voting unless, they don't have the ability to vote unless they
show
are,
up to the
They
meeting.
don't have an
unless
obligation
there's
to show up
somebody
either.
not,
You
they don't have
can,
an obligation, but
Hmm.
if they don't, if someone doesn't come, they can can be there
Yes,
as a
of course,
voting
right.
member,
Hmm.
correct?
Quorum's
Yes.
3 though, right? Quorum's 3 out of 5.
I'm just at
Right.
5,
Yeah,
still
all right.
bothers me.
All right, so
Can we do
we're
it?
done voting on
And
that.
it was the lowest vote.
Do we wanna do
Did
that?
you finish what you were gonna do? All right, we don't need to do anything else, do we?
But do we want to put an alternate in there?
Well, we can come back anytime and add them if we have to.
We can?
Yep. Just like
Yeah,
we have now.
we'd revise
You
the,
have to
we'd
revise
have
the
to,
thing and bring
have
it
to
back.
do a new ordinance. Tonight, if you wanted to make that change tonight, someone would have to make a motion to bring back. It can't be Commissioner Wilson because she voted against it. It has to be a member who voted for the ordinance to bring the item back for reconsideration.
I don't think, wait,
I said we come back and add it. I said we come back and add it.
And I just have a question, as far as the term limits as well, because you just put term limits, is that going to apply to the alternates? Because alternates for most
Yeah,
of our boards
we'll
aren't
have to.
required to attend the meetings, just asking.
Yeah, I think we're getting, digging deep here.
no, but
We can just go through the process.
You can
again.
see you can see how it works and see if there's issues and then come back
Right.
in a month or 2 months or 3 months and we could do another ordinance to
Add all.
to add alternates.
So was that a motion that died, or was that not a motion
Yep.
at all? I don't know, I'm
There was
just,
no motion.
it was no
Your
motion?
second, no motion.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so, you through?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, I'm gonna go to the comments. Staff act, you don't have, Rob?
I have nothing there.
Commissioner Grogan,
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
I'll use his time. Have we made a decision, I don't think I've heard this yet, July 3rd is a
I'm gonna
night.
bring that up.
Oh, you want to wait until you
Yes,
bring it? Okay, then.
I'll bring it up.
Okay, then I won't use your time on it. I have other, I need someone else's time for some other things. You know, I just wanted to mention that, there's 2 things then. As I've been driving on Highway 50, it looks great, it's open. And, just for folks to know that area that's within the CRA, that's not going to just be plain grass. What you see is gonna look really sharp later, so please understand that. It's just like the telephone pole, and I'm sorry, light poles going down Bluford Avenue, that's gonna change too. But, it's just the idea that things are gonna start really look good, so please just be patient. I have a dilemma, and I need the commission's help on this one. And as summer is approaching, it's going to be even worse. But down at the park, which could be all of our parks, but I'm gonna use the one just here at Bill Breeze. Folks are coming down, and it's not the first time, second time. The other night I heard it, but it's been a few times now. They come in with their amplified music, and they are disrupting the neighbors. They're disrupting those in the other pavilions. It gets very loud. When you can hear it a block away, you realize the person who's having a picnic next to them is having to listen to their music. I know that Winter Garden has a sign that says no amplified music. You know, you put a little Bluetooth in front of your table, that's great. You play music for your friends right there, that's wonderful. But there's no reason to disrupt the neighbors, and a lot of our parks are in residential communities, and there's no reason to disrupt our neighbors. I think all of us have parks. I think so. And but I would like to change that, and I understand since it's a city park, that we can change that, and we can add no amplified music, because the first nice day we had the other day, and that's happened every year, you get a large group, which is wonderful, they're using our parks, the folks are there to enjoy it, but you want everyone to enjoy it, and even the neighbors who live around it to have to be able to enjoy their own property. So I would like us to, and I probably need the attorney at this, but about the amplified music at the park, that we don't want amplified music. Let's control it, and let's, at all of our parks, and make it pleasant for all of our residents, those who are enjoying the pavilions or setting their own tent up, and those who are living around it.
Can we have staff, draw up?
I think we can incorporate that in our parks rules. I think what we would want to do is no amplified music unless you have a permit from the city to have amplified music. But it's our park, and we can set whatever rules we want. So if we have a consensus that that's something you'd want us to enforce, Parks and Rec staff, park rangers, police, I think we could certainly implement that fairly easily.
Because we have Founder's Day, that's a permit, correct? Do we have to do a permit
Yeah.
for Founder's Day? Just want to make sure we're not knocking, we're
No,
kind
no.
of.
Well, that's why I say without a permit,
Spring
yeah.
Fling, I believe we get a permit. I hope that we get a permit. The police department handles that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
but the thing is, there's a few functions that we have, and I know that when we do the, what is it, one that's for, I can't think of the name of the program that comes in every year with the disabled? No, Spring Fling. What is it? No, there's one other one that comes in. I don't know if they have a permit. Do they have to have a permit? You know what I'm talking about? It's that they take.
They get a permit from.
Do they get a permit? I
Parks
can't
and
think of it
Recreation.
for our,
You talking about that guy in the wheelchairs?
yeah, I don't know if the correct word, disabled, group that
Yeah.
comes in. Do they have to get a permit?
Typically, I think staff does issue a permit for that, but if we get to the last minute and we find out we didn't, we could easily.
Make sure they have
If it's a
permit.
city-sponsored function, typically we don't have
Yeah,
an issue
life,
with that.
that's it. It's Access Life,
Yeah.
Access
Yeah.
Life. But there may be other programs that we want, but we're going to have to make sure they get a permit.
Yes.
But
And I don't really think that's an issue, Commissioner, because typically, when something like Access Life happens, we do have the permit that goes through, so all the different departments know about it, and they know to have resources available for that. So,
we could handle that.
yes.
And we'll get signs up?
I think that's the direction. We have
I'm
consensus.
ready.
Yeah,
Consensus?
Does it
Yes.
need a motion or consensus?
that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that wasn't so bad. I can throw my nose.
Commissioner,
I got it.
first, just to mention again, the community picnic down at Freedom Park this Saturday from 11 till 2, and the Memorial Day ceremony, May 25th, from 11 till 12 at a Bill Breeze Park, the gazebo. Everybody come on out.
Commissioner Oliver.
Nothing at this time.
All right, before we close, Commissioner Oliver brought up a good point about the road. I said what I said about the pre-do it because we went through that process over the years. But I would say it doesn't hurt to take and have the city look at what it would cost us, because we talked about someday widening Clark Road from where the firehouse is at up to Clark Road, up to Clear Corner Road. And I know it's costly, but when we developed all the left side, like we're doing now, and take the impact fees, we can look at that, because we have the right of way to the,
Yeah, I think
west
there's,
side.
it's actually a requirement for some future development up there
Right.
for them to put
That's what I'm saying. We got
last
it
two
in the
lanes in.
development
Yes.
things, but we can go ahead and see what it would tentatively get a cost. is what it's gonna cost.
Front,
Probably-
are you saying front the dollars and then
Yeah,
get
just see-
reimbursed? We could do that.
For that part, and we can see what the impact fee money out of transportation for that area.
Yeah, I have talked to
to
Steve
address
Krug
those issues.
recently too. I know what Commissioner Oliver's talking about, the traffic from 5 to 6 is, I think the setting of the lights is part of the
Yeah, well,
issue
that's-
too.
I'm
It's
fixing
giving
to
too
bring
much
that up,
time to
too.
east-west traffic and not enough to north-south.
I have asked, is Steve Krug still here, or he gone? I have asked Steve to address it with the state, but the state don't seem to change. The lights are screwed up at McGuire Road and 50. And also, somebody has got to put it to them to change that light. I sat there today when I went up there to go to the gym, and I looked behind me and they were lined all the way down to Bright House. So they're not changing right. Somebody's got to get them and get them to come out and change that.
Mayor, we're going through with the state, they're doing their punch out of the traffic signals, and we're going through it to get everything lined up. We're going through that with them right now. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with our field people and our maintenance people to go through everything.
All right.
And we are looking at the Clark Road at Claircone and Ocoee, because it's like in the past 2 weeks, all of a sudden it has just been backing up, and we've been talking about it with other staff throughout the day. It's not just a rush hour thing, so we gotta
All right.
figure out what's going on there.
Two things, lights on the extension, McGuire extension. We put that road in landscape, and I know it's supposed to be that, whoever that developer is, I guess is their right to do the maintenance of that new extension we got, is what I was told.
Blackwood Main
Or
Street.
As far as maintenance, the part between.
mowing, because I called and had y'all mow it, but I was told that the developer's supposed to mow it. But we've got to figure that out, get somebody to look at it, because you can't let it grow up. And then lights have to be put through there, because it's dark.
It's real dark.
From what, looking at that, there might be a light on each side because it's a very short intersection. We're getting ready, we're working on putting traffic signals at both ends of the
Yes.
intersection. So we don't want to put in street lights that are going to conflict with also.
Well, you put them in the middle, you put one in each.
Right, but I mean, it's a very
I know.
short distance.
It is, but it's dark. So, the other one is Ingram Road. Steve, I won't ever lit up on that one. Those lights on Ingram Road.
I'm hoping to have a number to bring forward to the commission for the budget. We're finally getting some action out of Duke to where we can get some
Yes.
numbers. I'm still hoping we'll have something realistic to bring you.
And Windsor, in front of, coming down McGuire Road, when you leave Robeson Road, from Robeson Road past that shopping area, back all the way down to where our city limits goes, we're supposed to look at putting lights on that area there. There's no lights there. There probably wouldn't be but 3 or 4 lights, but there's no lights in that area. Okay? All right.
All right.
About those streets,
Yes.
when you come out of the hospital, I think I wrote you this, it used to be there's 2 left lanes, you can turn left on, coming out of the hospital going onto 50. Well, now they've got one going left, one going right, and one goes straight down towards Texas Roadhouse, but there's no markings on the road.
No.
And people were used to taking those 2 lanes and turning left, and now I think
We've-
that's causing some issues there.
They've done some other things, like if you're coming on north on McGuire as you approach 50, it used to be a right turn lane. The state, they restriped it, and the last arrow gives it they made it a straight through, so we're gonna go. Had they been prudent, they would have corrected everything. We'll be going back through there making some changes.
And, leave me, I want to get through here, but I want to say a couple things. The roads, we put these beautiful trees in, somebody's going to have constant observation to keep them where they don't die. We spent a lot of money on those trees, and I was noticing a few of them today, and I know it might be because they just got planted, but some of them's going to have a little more tender care. They're drying up, and they still got them bundled up. Some of them's falling out of the bundles. But also, the 3 at coming out of White Road by the firehouse, they're dead halfway up. So those things need to become off.
We've got, before we trim them, we're having arborists come out and look at them.
All right.
We don't want to cut off what they may need to look at to figure out what's happening with
And,
them.
all right. And I will say again, Commissioner Oliver, I agree with you on the traffic. It is everywhere. You go down to 429, it is bumper to bumper. But what's happened, everybody's come to our beautiful side of town, all the way from Popkin here and everywhere else, and they're all coming in. It's just like McGuire Road, that was a 2-lane road, we made a 4-lane road out of it, and everybody from Windermere now comes through us, so. All right, July the 3rd, we need a motion to cancel the July 3rd meeting.
I'll be happy to make that.
Commissioner Wilson makes the July the 3rd,
I'll second it.
seconded by Commissioner First. All in favor, let's vote. Commissioner Albrecht, you want to vote on missing July the 3rd? Or you be here by yourself?
I hope we did, should we have asked if there was anything on the agenda? Should we have asked?
All right. Meeting adjourned.
I'll be where you got something.